There is a weariness that comes from events, and there is another weariness that comes from the meaning you have given them. The first may pass when the day ends. The second follows you into the darkened room, lies beside you upon the pillow, and continues a conversation no one else can hear. You may have appeared calm before others. You may have answered politely, completed what was required, and carried yourself with dignity. Yet within, you may have argued for hours with a person who was not present, defended yourself before an imaginary judge, interpreted a silence, feared a letter, counted what remained, or tried to force tomorrow to reveal what it has not yet disclosed. I know that hidden fatigue. It is not always the circumstance that exhausts you. Often it is the inner labor of deciding what the circumstance means. A delayed answer becomes rejection. A changed expression becomes danger. An unexpected expense becomes a prophecy of insufficiency. One difficult hour becomes evidence that the whole future is turning against you. The event occurs once, but imagination repeats it, enlarges it, supplies it with consequences, and then compels the body to suffer a future that has not arrived. Tonight I would have you interrupt that ancient habit, not by fighting the world, not by pretending that nothing matters, and not by forcing yourself into a joy you do not feel. I would have you discover a power quieter than reaction. It is the power to leave an event unfinished until you have chosen the state from which it will be understood. It is the power to say, "This has appeared, but it has not been given the right to name me. This has happened, but I will not permit it to write the final sentence." Before sleep takes you, you will begin to see why inward stillness is not passivity. You will see why peace need not wait for another person to change, for a sum to arrive, for a decision to be made, or for the outer world to become agreeable. You will see that peace may be the very state from which a different order of events begins. What men call a miracle may sometimes be only the visible arrival of a sequence that began when one person ceased feeding the old state with fear. So let one question remain before you. What if the circumstance has continued, not because it possesses some independent and irresistible power, but because it has continued to receive your attention, your interpretation, your inward conversation, and your emotional agreement? What if the outer difficulty has been kept alive by the very effort with which you have tried to escape it? And what if, tonight, you were to withdraw that agreement without anger, without denial, and without strain? You do not need to answer yet. You need only become willing to listen. Before we go farther, make one small outward gesture that reflects this inward willingness. Subscribe to this channel, not as though the movement itself possessed power, and not as a bargain with fate, but as a quiet sign that you have chosen to return to these teachings instead of returning, night after night, to the same fearful conclusion. Let the act say, "I am willing to remember what the world continually tempts me to forget. I am willing to place imagination above appearances and inner authority above automatic reaction." Subscribe now and remain near this teaching, not because truth is confined to any one place, but because repetition waters what a single hearing may only plant. Let your decision be simple and undramatic. You are not pressing for a miracle. You are making a private declaration that the old manner of thinking will no longer be the only voice you hear. Then release even that gesture. Do not look upon it again. The true work is not in the hand, it is in the state from which the hand moved. Now return with me to the silence beneath your thoughts. Perhaps you have spent this day watching another person for evidence of what you mean to them. You noticed a word omitted, a warmth withdrawn, an expression changed, or a promise delayed. You may have carried the moment away with you and placed it beneath a powerful inward lens. What was small became large. What was uncertain became definite. What had no clear meaning became a judgment against you. The other person may have spoken for only a minute, yet you have continued the conversation for hours. You supplied the words they did not say. You imagined their motives. You prepared your defense. You heard yourself explaining why you deserved better, and then you imagined them refusing to understand. Your body responded to this inward exchange as though it were happening in the room. The shoulders tightened, the breath shortened, the heart prepared for loss. You may call this thinking, but it is imagination in action. You may call it analysis, but it is the construction of an inner event. You may call it protecting yourself, but the protection often forces you to live through pain before any pain has been required of you. This is how power is given away. It is not taken from you by the person, the letter, the silence, or the circumstance. You surrender it through the meaning you accept. You make the event the author and yourself the character, helplessly written by it. Someone delays, and you become the one who is forgotten. Someone withdraws, and you become the one who is unwanted. A plan changes, and you become the one for whom nothing works. A payment is postponed, and you become the one who is never supported. A door remains closed, and you become the one to whom life says no. But the event did not contain all of this. You added identity to circumstance. You joined the divine name, I am, to a conclusion drawn in fear. I am forgotten. I am unwanted. I am unlucky. I am unsupported. I am powerless before what has occurred. The circumstance may have invited these conclusions because they were familiar. But invitation is not command. You do not have to accept every name the world appears to offer you. This night can become the night on which you stop accepting those names. Not through shouting their opposites, not through pretending that the heart has never been wounded, not through condemning yourself for every old reaction. You begin by recognizing what has happened. There is the event, and there is the state I have entered because of the event. These are not the same. The event may be outside your immediate control. The state is the place in which your freedom begins. You may not control what was said this afternoon. You may not control when the letter arrives. You may not control the first impulse of another person. You may not control every turn of an institution or every condition of the visible world. But you can cease granting these things the right to determine the inward position from which you live. This is not a small power. It is the beginning of mastery. The unawakened person believes mastery means controlling everyone and everything. He wishes to arrange the world until nothing can disturb him. He says, when all people behave properly, when every uncertainty is removed, when money is secure, when the body is perfect, when the future is guaranteed, then I shall be at peace. But such a peace is forever postponed. The world changes its form before the mind has finished arranging it. One question is answered, and another appears. One person behaves as desired, and another does not. One obligation is completed, and another stands waiting. If peace depends upon the obedience of the whole world, peace becomes impossible. I would show you another foundation. You need not control the world in order to stop giving the world control over your state. This does not make you indifferent. It makes you free to respond intelligently. The frightened person reacts first and understands later. The inwardly centered person allows the first wave to pass before deciding what the event shall mean. That pause may last only one breath. Yet within one breath, an entire destiny may turn. Something happens. The old state rises. The familiar story begins. But before the story completes itself, you say, I do not yet know what this means. These words are not weakness. They are a refusal to hand the pen to fear. I do not yet know what this means. The silence may not mean abandonment. The delay may not mean refusal. The closing of one door may not mean the loss of the destination. The change in another may not define my worth. This unpleasant hour may not be the beginning of the future I fear. I do not yet know. The anxious mind dislikes these words because it prefers even a painful certainty to an open possibility. It would rather declare failure than remain without an explanation. It believes that a conclusion, however cruel, offers control. But many of the conclusions you have called realistic were merely fear completing an unfinished scene. Tonight, leave the scene unfinished. You do not have to call it good. You do not have to tell yourself that every painful event is secretly a blessing. You do not have to rejoice in confusion. Simply refrain from making a permanent judgment while standing in a temporary moment. This restraint is one of the quiet forms of faith. Faith is not always a triumphant feeling. Sometimes faith is the refusal to say, this is the end. Sometimes faith is the refusal to interpret silence. Sometimes faith is going to sleep before the question is answered. Sometimes faith is allowing the body to rest while the outer matter remains unfinished. You have been taught to believe that vigilance keeps you safe. You imagine that if you stop worrying, the circumstance will gain power. If you stop thinking about the person, the bond will disappear. If you stop calculating, provision will cease. If you stop searching for the answer, you will miss it. But anxiety is not the rope by which your life is held together. Your fear is not performing a sacred duty. Your sleeplessness is not guiding the sun toward morning. There are movements taking place that require no conscious supervision from you. The earth turns while you sleep. The heart continues while the mind wanders. A seed opens in darkness without the gardener leaning over it. A wound begins its repair beneath the surface before the eye can see what has changed. Why then do you imagine that the bridge between an accepted state and its expression must be managed by worry? Perhaps your exhaustion has not come from carrying life. Perhaps it has come from trying to perform the office of the law. You have attempted to decide the means, to arrange the people, to anticipate the conversations, to prevent every wrong turn, to protect the desire from delay, to hold the future so tightly that nothing unexpected can enter. But the means belong to a deeper order. Your responsibility is the state you accept. The bridge carries that state into expression through events, decisions, meetings, memories, impulses, and changes you cannot consciously design. When you confuse your responsibility with the responsibility of the bridge, you become exhausted. You try to inhabit the end while also supervising every road toward it. You declare completion, then spend the day asking how completion can possibly occur. This inner contradiction produces tension. The words say, "It is done." The reaction says, "Nothing is safe unless I watch it." Tonight, you begin to release that contradiction. You do not have to make the miracle. You have to stop feeding the state in which the miracle is impossible. You do not have to force the door. You have to stop identifying yourself as the one forever left outside. You do not have to command another person. You have to stop making another person's temporary behavior the source of your identity. You do not have to control tomorrow. You have to stop creating tomorrow from tonight's fear. This is where your power returns. It returns not as domination, but as authorship. You become aware that every interpretation is an imaginal act. Every inner conversation is an occupation of state. Every conclusion is a seed. The world may give you the event, but you decide whether to water it with repeated attention. Suppose a person speaks coldly to you. The moment occurs and passes, yet later you hear the tone again within yourself. You repeat the words. You imagine what should have been said. You build scenes of future conflict. You hear the person speaking even more harshly. You feel yourself being misunderstood. You suffer each scene as though it were fact. The outer conversation lasted 1 minute. The inner conversation has lasted the entire evening. Which one has occupied more of your consciousness? This is not said to blame you. I tell you so that you may see where freedom lies. You may not be able to erase the first conversation from history, but you can refuse to give it 100 future performances. You may revise it. You may hear the tone softened. You may hear the words you wished had been spoken. Or you may simply allow the whole exchange to dissolve and decide that it has no power to define the relationship, your worth, or the future. The event loses creative force when it is no longer inwardly rehearsed. What you cease to feed begins to weaken. An old state is not sustained merely because something once occurred. It is sustained because consciousness continues to occupy it. A house abandoned gradually changes. Dust gathers. The fire goes out. The rooms grow silent. The structure may remain visible for a time, but it is no longer a living home. Let the unwanted state become such a house. You need not demolish it tonight. Simply stop living there. Stop placing fresh wood upon its fire. Stop opening its curtains every morning. Stop inviting every circumstance inside to confirm that it is still your residence. You may know the house exists without calling it home. The state of fear may still be familiar. The state of being overlooked may still know your voice. The state of scarcity may still have your former belongings arranged within it. But you can leave. You leave first by refusing the identity. This event occurred, but I am not defined by it. This person was silent, but I am not the forgotten one. This obligation exists, but I am not the unsupported one. This answer is delayed, but I am not the one to whom life says no. This hour is uncertain, but I am not uncertainty. Notice the difference between denying the event and denying it the right to name you. I do not ask you to become blind. I ask you to place things in their proper order. The circumstance is an appearance. The state is a cause. The appearance may report what has been previously accepted. It does not command what must be accepted now. Think of a messenger arriving with a letter written yesterday. The letter may contain unwanted news. You can read it, you may respond wisely, but you need not answer it in the same language in which it was written. If yesterday spoke fear, today need not reply with fear. If yesterday spoke rejection, tonight need not rehearse rejection. If yesterday spoke insufficiency, consciousness need not compose tomorrow from the same assumption. The messenger carries a report. He does not carry a command. What is before you is a report, not a command. Let this phrase settle. A report, not a command. The account reports a condition. It does not command your identity. The silence reports an absence of speech. It does not command the meaning abandonment. The closed door reports that one passage is not presently open. It does not command the conclusion that no path exists. The body reports a sensation. It does not command a lifetime of fear. The past reports what occurred. It does not command repetition. You have been reading reports as decrees. Tonight, the decrees return to consciousness. I am the awareness that selects the state. I may acknowledge the report without accepting its prophecy. I may respond to the circumstance without surrendering to it. I may feel what I feel without becoming what I feel. This last truth is important. Being inwardly undisturbed does not mean becoming incapable of emotion. A stone does not feel, but neither does it imagine. You are not asked to become stone. You may be disappointed. You may be weary. You may feel anger. You may grieve. You may experience the first movement of fear before you can prevent it. None of these passing experiences has the power to become your identity, unless you repeatedly accept it as such. A feeling may move through the room of consciousness. It does not have to become the owner. You may allow sadness to sit beside you without giving it the whole house. You may allow fear to speak without making it your oracle. You may allow anger to reveal a boundary without allowing anger to write the future. Emotional movement is not failure. It is human experience. The creative question is where you return. After the wave, where do you live? After the fear, what do you accept? After the disappointment, what conclusion do you refuse? This is how composure becomes genuine. It is not maintained by suppression. It is maintained by return. You may react and return. You may tremble and return. You may spend an hour in the old conversation and then notice where you are. The moment you notice, the door is open. Return. You do not need to punish yourself for wandering. Punishment only adds another unwanted state. Say, I have been living in an interpretation I no longer choose. Then return to the center. What is the center? It is not an emotion you must create. It is the quiet awareness beneath emotion. Before you say, I am afraid, there is I am. Before you say, I am unwanted, there is I am. Before you say, I am uncertain, there is I am. The condition is added to the awareness. The awareness itself remains open. You can clothe it differently. I am held. I am guided. I am respected. I am supported. I am inwardly secure. You need not repeat these words with force. One word accepted may change your position. The divine name does not need to be shouted. It needs to be joined consciously. The old habit joined I am to whatever the world suggested. The world showed silence. You said, I am forgotten. The world showed delay. You said, I am denied. The world showed difficulty. You said, I am powerless. Now you become more careful, not fearful, about what you join to being. You may say, silence is present, but I am still cherished. Delay is present, but I am still secure in the end selected. Difficulty is present, but I am not defined by difficulty. I do not yet know the place of this incident, This is how you remain unbothered without becoming indifferent. You do not deny the wave. You remember the ocean. A wave rises and falls upon the surface. The depth remains. You have lived too long upon the surface, mistaking every movement for the whole of yourself. A word lifts you. A silence lowers you. A look gives you worth. A delay removes it. A sum makes you feel secure. An expense makes you feel endangered. Your inner life rises and falls according to reports from outside. But you are deeper than the surface. There is a place within you that does not need to move with every wave. Tonight, I invite you toward that depth, not all at once, not through effort. Simply recognize that it exists. Beneath the argument, something is aware of the argument. Beneath the fear, something observes the fear. Beneath the future you have imagined, something is imagining it. That awareness can choose another direction. You are not trapped inside the picture because you are the one beholding the picture. You can turn from it. You can allow it to fade. You can behold another implication. Perhaps only the implication that all is not decided against you. That is enough for the beginning. You do not have to leap from despair to ecstasy. You need only stop calling despair final. You do not have to feel absolute certainty. You need only stop treating uncertainty as catastrophe. You do not have to imagine a grand miracle tonight. You need only cease imagining the feared ending. This may appear too simple. The mind that has labored for years does not trust simplicity. It believes a difficult condition requires a difficult method. It wishes to struggle because struggle feels proportionate to the problem. But consciousness does not measure creation by physical size. A small turn of the helm can change the destination of a great ship. A quiet decision can redirect years of habit. One sentence can close an inner courtroom that has remained in session for decades. I will not complete this story from fear. Let that sentence be enough for a while. You do not need to replace the whole story immediately. Leave it open. A story left open is no longer condemned to the former ending. The unknown, which once frightened you, becomes space in which another sequence may arise. You have called uncertainty your enemy because fear used the empty space to paint disaster. But the same empty space can become the field of possibility. If you do not know what will happen, then the feared ending is not fact. If the bridge is unseen, then you cannot truthfully declare that no bridge exists. If another person has not spoken, you cannot truthfully claim that every inner movement has ceased. If the means are not visible, you cannot truthfully claim that the end is impossible. You do not know. Let those words become gentle. I do not know how, and I do not need to know tonight. There is humility in this, and there is rest. The conscious mind is relieved of an office it cannot perform. It no longer must search every road. It no longer must enter every room. It no longer must know what every person is thinking. It no longer must guard every possibility. The mind may serve the present moment. The deeper order may arrange the bridge. This division of responsibility gives you back your life. Tomorrow, if action is required, you may act. You may write. You may speak. You may make an inquiry. You may respond to an obligation. You may establish a boundary. You may take the next practical step. But action taken tomorrow does not require anxiety tonight. You can act from clarity rather than panic. You can answer a circumstance without becoming the circumstance. You can make a decision without using fear as your advisor. Inward calm is not inactivity. It is the condition in which right action becomes easier to recognize. A muddy pool cannot reflect the sky clearly while it is continually stirred. Leave it undisturbed, and what was always above it becomes visible. So with the mind. When every event is stirred by interpretation, clarity disappears. You no longer see the event. You see fear's version of it. You no longer hear the person. You hear the history you have attached to the person. You no longer face the present obligation. You face every former moment of insufficiency gathered around it. You no longer consider one decision. You carry the imagined weight of all possible futures. Let the waters become still, not because the sky must obey you, because stillness allows you to see what agitation concealed. Perhaps the miracle begins as perception. You notice a possibility you could not see while afraid. You hear kindness in a conversation you expected to be hostile. You recognize that one closed door has freed you from a path you no longer desired. You understand that a delay has created time for another arrangement. You receive an impulse to take a natural step. From outside, the later outcome may appear miraculous. But inwardly, the first miracle was the cessation of fear's monopoly upon meaning. You stopped allowing one state to interpret everything. You made room for another. This is how a different sequence begins. The outer world often seems fixed because the inner interpretation has been fixed. Every new event is forced to prove the same old conclusion. If someone is kind, you suspect the kindness will not last. If an opportunity appears, you search for the hidden disappointment. If money arrives, you immediately imagine how it will disappear. If peace enters, you prepare for the next disturbance. The old state accepts nothing that contradicts it. It translates every blessing back into fear. Thus, the difficulty is not always that good has been absent. Sometimes consciousness has been unable to receive good without changing its meaning. The state of being unbothered makes reception possible. It does not grip the blessing. It does not interrogate it. It does not demand that it prove permanence before being enjoyed. It allows. This is why peace is creative. Peace is not merely a pleasant feeling after fulfillment. Peace can be the inner condition that makes fulfillment psychologically receivable. If you believe every good thing is endangered, you cannot rest within good. If you believe love must be watched, you cannot live naturally from love. If you believe supply must be defended every hour, you cannot experience the ease of supply. If you believe a miracle must arrive according to your chosen method, you may overlook the form in which the answer comes. Peace opens the hand. What is held with an open hand can be received without being crushed by fear. Tonight, begin opening the hand, not the physical hand alone, though it too may rest. Open the inward grip. Release the exact date. Release the exact conversation. Release the demand that one person perform one action in one way. Release the belief that the first visible sign must appear before you are permitted to breathe. The end can remain selected while the manner remains open. You do not abandon the desire by releasing control. You abandon only the belief that fear is required to deliver it. Let these words move gently through you. Fear is not required. Worry is not required. Constant analysis is not required. Emotional suffering is not the price of receiving. The law does not ask you to prove sincerity through torment. You may desire deeply and still sleep. You may care greatly and still remain inwardly quiet. You may be uncertain about the means and still be faithful to the end. You may encounter an unpleasant appearance and still refuse the identity it offers. This is the beginning of being unbothered. Not that nothing affects you, not that you become cold, but that what affects you does not automatically possess you. You experience the moment without giving it eternity. You hear the report without accepting the command. You feel the wave without abandoning the depth. You witness the old state without calling it home. There is dignity in this. The world may expect your former reaction. Another person may expect you to plead, defend, accuse, chase, withdraw, or collapse. Circumstances may seem arranged to draw the familiar self from you. But you are not required to provide the old performance. You may pause. You may remain quiet. You may answer later. You may say less. You may allow another person's mood to remain their mood. You may refuse to carry it into the night. The old state says, I must respond now, or I shall lose control. The centered state says, nothing true depends upon my panic. Feel the difference. One is hurried. The other has time. One believes a moment can destroy everything. The other knows that identity is deeper than a moment. One tries to seize the world. The other governs the inward kingdom. You are learning the second. It may feel unfamiliar, because reaction has long appeared to be strength. You may have believed that worry proved you cared, that explaining proved your innocence, that pursuing proved your love, that tension proved your responsibility. But care does not require self-abandonment. Innocence does not require endless defense. Love does not require pursuit without dignity. Responsibility does not require fear. You may care and remain centered. You may speak truth and remain at peace. You may act decisively without surrendering your inner life to urgency. This is quiet authority. It does not announce itself loudly. It is known by what it refuses to become. It refuses to become the silence. It refuses to become the delay. It refuses to become another person's uncertainty. It refuses to become the number upon the page. It refuses to become the memory. It refuses to become the feared future. The awareness remains greater than the appearance. You may say inwardly, "This is before me," but it is not above me. Not in arrogance, in proper order. The appearance is before awareness. Awareness selects its meaning. If you select fear, fear becomes the lens. If you select completion, the event is seen within a larger end. You do not have to call every incident favorable. You only refuse to call it final. This matter is unfinished. My life is unfinished. The bridge is unfinished. The other person's movement is unfinished. The possibility is unfinished. Therefore, I will not write the ending tonight. Let this be your freedom. You have written too many endings in darkness. You have taken a silence and written abandonment. You have taken an expense and written ruin. You have taken a mistake and written permanent failure. You have taken the passage of time and written too late. You have taken one person's behavior and written unworthy. No more endings tonight. Leave the pages open. Sleep before the final chapter. The author within you is selecting another state. The visible characters may not yet know their lines. The scenery may not yet have changed. The audience of the senses may still be looking at the old stage. But consciousness has chosen another drama. Let the stage hands work beyond your sight. Let scenes be removed. Let entrances be prepared. Let events gather in their natural order. You do not need to hear the movement behind the curtain. You need not lift it every few moments. Remain in the state that knows the ending. The ending is not fear. The ending is not rejection. The ending is not insufficiency. The ending is not humiliation. The ending is not endless waiting. The essence of the end is peace, fulfillment, dignity, support, love, and freedom. You need not choose every detail tonight. Choose the emotional kingdom. What would it be to be inwardly undisturbed because the end was secure? Would you still hold the jaw so tightly? Would you still listen for every sound? Would you still repeat the conversation? Would you still make the night responsible for solving tomorrow? Perhaps the fulfilled self would simply lie where you now lie. The same bed, the same darkness, the same hour, but another meaning. She is not waiting for life. She is resting after an inward decision. She is not abandoned in silence. She is sheltered by silence. She is not surrounded by uncertainty. She is giving the bridge room to form. She is not doing nothing. She is refusing to strengthen what she no longer wishes to experience. This is active in a deeper sense than restless thought. Every time you refuse the old conclusion, you withdraw life from it. Every time you decline the old inner conversation, you cease striking the bell whose echo has filled your world. Every time you permit peace before proof, you enter the state in which proof becomes natural. Do not demand immediate evidence of this movement. That demand would return you to the state of waiting. Let the first evidence be inward. The breath is slightly easier. The event feels less absolute. The question no longer seems to require an answer tonight. Another person's behavior feels less like a judgment of your worth. The future has not changed visibly, yet it feels less imprisoned. These are not insignificant changes. They reveal that attention is withdrawing from the old state. The circumstance may remain, but its throne is empty. Without your repeated emotional agreement, the circumstance is reduced to an event. It no longer has the whole architecture of identity supporting it. This is where another architecture can begin. You may ask, how quickly will the outer world respond? Do not turn peace into another method of measuring time. If you say, I will remain calm for 1 hour, and then inspect whether the miracle has appeared, you have not yet released the world. You are bargaining with it. True stillness says, I choose peace because peace belongs to the state I desire. I will not make its value dependent upon immediate confirmation. The outer response has its sequence. Your inward freedom is available now. Take the freedom first. Let the sequence follow. The paradox is that when you no longer demand that peace be rewarded instantly, your state becomes more coherent. The inner argument weakens. Attention ceases moving between possession and absence. The fulfilled state becomes more natural. Then events appropriate to it may emerge through ordinary means. A person changes their approach. A solution occurs to you in the morning. A forgotten possibility returns. A conversation opens unexpectedly. An obligation is met through a channel you had not considered. A tension resolves because you no longer enter the room prepared for battle. Men may call these things coincidences. You may call them miracles. But beneath either name is the correspondence between state and experience. Do not chase the correspondence tonight. Establish the state. Let yourself become the one who can witness change without having demanded every step. You are not trying to make the world hurry. You are ceasing to delay your own peace. That is the work of this night. The mind may still return to the circumstance. Let it. Each return of the thought becomes an opportunity to practice another response. The image appears. You say, I do not have to interpret this tonight. The person's face appears. You say, their present state does not name me. The financial matter appears. You say, this is a report, not a command. The uncertain future appears. You say, the ending remains open. The body tightens. You say, a sensation is present, but I remain the awareness choosing the state. Do not repeat all of these as a rigid formula. Use what meets the moment. One gentle sentence is enough. Then release it. You do not have to fight the thought until it disappears. Fighting often binds attention to it. Let it remain at the edge while you turn toward another meaning. A lamp does not argue with darkness. It gives light. Your selected state is the light. Perhaps tonight the light is very small. A candle of possibility. That is sufficient. You do not need the whole horizon illuminated. You need only enough light not to walk automatically into the old room. There is another room beside it, a room in which no immediate conclusion is required, a room in which you are not judged by another's behavior, a room in which tomorrow may arrive without being rehearsed, a room in which the unknown contains possibility. Enter that room. You need not furnish it tonight. Sit quietly. Let unfamiliar peace become a little more familiar. The old room may call you. It contains all the arguments you know so well. It contains the chair from which you have watched the door. It contains the window from which you have searched for signs. It contains the clock whose passing you interpreted as denial. You know that room, but you do not have to sleep there again. Tonight, choose another room. In this room, the clock measures rest, not rejection. The silence is spacious, not empty. The darkness is gentle, not threatening. The unopened door belongs to tomorrow, not to your worth. You lie here without supervising the world. This is not fantasy. It is a new use of imagination. You once used imagination to enter tomorrow's pain before it arrived. Now you use imagination to enter tonight's peace before the world grants permission. Both acts occur inwardly. One weakens you. The other restores you. If fear calls one realistic and the other impossible, remember that fear has been your interpreter for a long time. It naturally praises its own stories. You are not required to believe everything the old interpreter says. You may hear the voice and remain still. There is the old conclusion. I need not return to it. There is the old urgency. I need not obey it. There is the old identity. I need not wear it. Nothing more is required. You do not have to replace fear with intense confidence. Neutrality is a doorway. Perhaps you cannot yet say, everything is perfect. Then say, everything is not decided against me. Perhaps you cannot yet say, I am certain of the answer. Then say, I am willing to leave room for an answer I cannot see. Perhaps you cannot yet say, I am completely unbothered. Then say, I do not have to carry this for the next few minutes. Honest relief is more useful than forced magnificence. The deeper mind receives what you accept, not what you shout while inwardly resisting. Begin where consent is possible. A few minutes without interpretation. A breath without defense. A moment in which another person is not allowed to live inside your head. a night in which one unanswered question is not treated as an emergency. These are genuine movements of state. You may not see them celebrated in the world. No one may know that you resisted the old inner conversation. No one may applaud the moment you chose not to send another fearful message, not to rehearse another conflict, not to imagine another rejection. But consciousness knows what it occupies. Each quiet choice builds a different identity. One day, remaining centered will no longer feel like a practice. It will feel like you. The event will occur, and before the old story begins, another knowing will rise. This does not define me. I do not need to interpret this immediately. The end remains selected. Then your outer life will reveal the consequences of that inward stability. Your words will change. Your timing will change. The actions you take will change. The behavior you tolerate will change. The opportunities you notice will change. The emotional roles others expect you to play will no longer be supplied. From outside, life will appear to have changed around you. From within, you will know that the first change was the recovery of your own center. But we are not yet concerned with tomorrow's evidence. We are concerned with tonight's release. You have spent enough hours giving events meanings they did not inherently contain. You have spent enough nights lending your imagination to outcomes you did not desire. You have spent enough strength rehearsing conversations that never occurred. Let this hour be different. Do not demand that it transform everything. Let it transform one relationship. Your relationship with the present moment. This moment is not an enemy. It is not a test you must pass before sleeping. It is not proof that nothing is working. It is simply the moment in which you may choose the state. Choose gently. You may choose, I am not required to know. You may choose, I am still inwardly secure. You may choose, I will not make this appearance final. You may choose, peace is allowed before proof. Then become quiet. The choice does not need constant repetition. Let it spread through the body as meaning. The forehead has been trying to solve. It may stop solving for a while. The jaw has been defending. It may stop defending. The shoulders have been preparing to carry tomorrow. They may return tomorrow to tomorrow. The hands have been holding the matter. They may open. The breath has been waiting for permission to deepen. Give it permission, not as an exercise to perform correctly, as a sign that no immediate danger is present in this room. The circumstance may be real. The emergency is often imagined. Tonight, you distinguish between them. If a practical matter requires action, it can be met at its proper hour. But the mind's repeated dramatization is not action. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to rest before resolution. You are allowed to remain unbothered in the deeper sense, not indifferent to life, but unwilling to let temporary appearances invade the seat of identity. Let the world remain outside for a little while. It will still be there in the morning. The letter will not vanish because you sleep. The person will not be controlled because you worry. The account will not be solved because you tighten the body. The future will not become safer because you suffer tonight. Release what suffering cannot accomplish. Keep only the state. I am the one who may choose peace now. I am the one who may leave the meaning open. I am the one who does not have to become the event. I am the one who may sleep while the bridge forms. This is enough. You may already feel the mind asking what comes next. Let it wait. There will be time to understand the distinction between being unbothered and being uncaring. There will be time to see how reaction feeds an unwanted state, how the pause restores choice, and how a circumstance can be a report without becoming a command. But not all truth must be received at once. For now, receive only this. Your exhaustion may not have come entirely from what occurred. It may have come from the story you were forced to carry after it occurred. And because a story can be stopped, revised, or left unfinished, your exhaustion need not remain your fate. The event may be present. The old meaning is optional. The old reaction may arise. Obedience is optional. The old identity may call. Occupancy is optional. You are beginning to see where your power has always been, not in forcing the world, in refusing to surrender the inward throne to every passing appearance. This night need not be the night you solve the circumstance. Let it be the night you stop allowing the circumstance to solve the question of who you are. You are not the silence. You are not the delay. You are not the uncertainty. You are not another person's mood. You are not the figure upon a page. You are not the memory. You are the awareness that can observe all of these and still select another state. Rest in that awareness for a little while. Do not make it mystical. You are aware. That is enough. You are listening. That is enough. You are breathing. That is enough. Nothing needs to be completed yet. Nothing needs to be interpreted yet. Nothing needs to be forced. You do not have to solve anything now. You only need to listen. Let the words continue around you without effort. Let them reach the place that has been arguing all day. Let that place discover that it may become quiet without losing power. Let it discover that stillness is not surrender to the circumstance. Stillness is the withdrawal of surrender from the circumstance. You no longer feed it with every imagined consequence. You no longer kneel before it as the author. You no longer grant it tomorrow, before tomorrow comes. You remain here, present, aware, open, and for this moment, inwardly free. You must not mistake inward composure for coldness. To remain unbothered does not mean that you cease to care, that you close the heart, that you become indifferent to the pain of another, or that you pretend an unkind act has caused no wound. It does not mean that you tolerate what is degrading, remain silent when wisdom calls you to speak, or neglect a responsibility because you have decided that appearances are unimportant. Such indifference is not mastery. It is often fear wearing the garment of detachment. I would not have you become less alive. I would have you become less enslaved. There is a great difference between feeling an event and becoming the event. There is a difference between experiencing disappointment and accepting disappointment as the law of your life. There is a difference between hearing an unkind word and carrying that word into every room of consciousness. There is a difference between meeting a difficulty and allowing that difficulty to sit upon the throne of identity. You may care deeply without surrendering your peace. You may love another without making their every mood the ruler of your inner world. You may desire an answer without spending the night in fear of what the answer may be. You may respond firmly without reacting blindly. You may protect what is sacred without making anger your permanent state. You may grieve what has occurred without writing grief into every chapter that remains. This is what it means to remain inwardly unbothered. The event may enter your experience, but it does not enter the center from which you define yourself. A storm may pass over the sea. The surface rises. The wind presses against the water. Waves form and break. Yet far beneath the surface, there is a depth untouched by the agitation above. The ocean does not deny the storm. It contains it without becoming only the storm. You are such an ocean. The surface of the mind may move. The heart may feel. The body may respond. But you are not limited to the movement upon the surface. There is a depth in you from which you may observe the wave without giving the wave your identity. The mistake is not that the wave rises. The mistake is believing that because a wave has risen, the whole ocean has become unstable forever. An emotion is a movement. Identity is a residence. A feeling may move through you, but you do not have to build a home inside it. Let these words become clear. Emotion is movement. Identity is residence. Fear may move. You need not reside in fear. Anger may move. You need not reside in anger. Sorrow may move. You need not reside in sorrow. Disappointment may move. You need not furnish a house for disappointment and call it your future. A traveler may pass through a town without becoming a citizen of it. She may know its streets, feel its weather, and hear its voices, yet continue toward another destination. So may you pass through a feeling. You may say, sadness is present. That is honest. But when you say, I am a person for whom life is always sad, you have moved from feeling into residence. You may say, I am disappointed by this event. That is honest. But when you say, this proves I am destined to be disappointed, you have taken one passing movement and given it a permanent address. You may say, this person's behavior has wounded me. That may be true. But when you say, their behavior reveals my worth, you have surrendered the divine name to an outer appearance. You are permitted to feel without concluding. This freedom is greater than the freedom of pretending nothing matters. The one who pretends not to care may still be deeply governed by the thing she denies. She says, "It means nothing to me." Yet she continues the argument inwardly. She says, "I have forgotten it." Yet every quiet moment brings it back. She says, "I am untouched." Yet the body remains tense whenever the name is spoken. This is not being unbothered. It is disturbance hidden beneath silence. True composure does not require a mask. It does not fear the truth of the present emotion. It can say, "Yes, this hurt me," and still refuse to say, "Therefore I am defeated." It can say, "Yes, I am uncertain," and still refuse to say, "Therefore the worst must happen." It can say, "Yes, I care," and still refuse to make care an excuse for self-torment. You do not become powerful by denying what you feel. You become powerful by refusing to turn what you feel into what you are. Suppose a woman loves someone deeply. She values the relationship. She desires harmony, kindness, and mutual understanding. Then a cold exchange occurs. The other person withdraws, answers sharply, or remains silent. The woman feels the wound. Her love makes her sensitive to the moment. There is nothing weak in that sensitivity. But what follows determines the state she occupies. She may immediately enter the house of rejection. She imagines that the silence will continue. She recalls every former wound. She hears the other person saying words not yet spoken. She prepares for abandonment. She tells herself that love always ends in disappointment. The original event lasted a few moments. The inward residence may last for days. Now imagine that the same woman feels the first wave of pain, but recognizes it as movement. She does not shame herself. She does not say, "I must be calm immediately." She allows the first response. Then she remembers, "This feeling is passing through me. It is not the place from which I shall define myself." She may decide to speak later. She may establish a boundary. She may ask a necessary question. She may even decide that the relationship, in its present form, cannot continue. Being unbothered does not require her to remain where she is diminished. But whatever action she takes, she refuses to take it as the abandoned woman. She acts as one who knows her value. She speaks as one who is worthy of respect. She leaves, if leaving is wise, as one who remains whole. She stays, if staying is wise, without becoming a beggar for affection. The visible action may be firm. The inner state remains dignified. This is composure. The world often confuses composure with passivity, because composure does not always move immediately. It does not rush to answer every provocation. It does not believe that urgency proves strength. It does not spend itself upon every passing disturbance. A strong vessel does not alter its entire course, because one wave strikes its side. It feels the wave. It adjusts if adjustment is needed. But it does not surrender the destination to the wave. Let the ship become your image tonight. You are upon a vessel moving toward a chosen shore. The sea is not always calm. There may be winds you did not expect. There may be waves that cause the vessel to rise and fall. There may be moments when the horizon disappears behind weather. Yet the captain does not say, "Because the sea has moved, I have no destination." He does not hand the wheel to each wave. He responds to the conditions, but the conditions do not decide the port. So too, you may respond to life without allowing life's temporary movements to determine where you end. The wave may be another person's behavior. The wave may be a delayed answer. The wave may be an unexpected expense. The wave may be a memory that returns suddenly. The wave may be a sensation in the body. The wave may be a moment of loneliness. Feel the movement of the vessel if you must, but do not change the destination to match the weather. The chosen shore remains. If your end is love, do not surrender the state of being cherished, because one moment feels cold. If your end is security, do not surrender the state of being supported, because one obligation appears. If your end is peace, do not surrender the state of inward harmony, because the day was difficult. If your end is dignity, do not surrender your worth, because another person has forgotten how to see it. The wave is not the destination. The weather is not the voyage. The emotion is not the identity. This distinction gives you permission to be human without becoming helpless. You may say, "I am angry." Then look more closely. Are you saying that anger is passing through the body? Or are you clothing I am in anger and making it your throne? Perhaps the more accurate statement is, anger is moving through me because a boundary has been crossed. Now the feeling may carry information without becoming your master. It may show you that something must change. It may reveal that you have tolerated what no longer corresponds to the state you wish to occupy. Then act from clarity. Do not act merely to discharge the anger. Let the wave pass enough that you can see the shore again. A reaction seeks immediate relief from emotion. A response expresses the identity you have chosen. Reaction says, I must speak now because I cannot bear this feeling. Response says, I will speak when my words serve the end I have selected. Reaction says, I must make the other person feel what I feel. Response says, I will not allow another's state to choose mine. Reaction says, I must restore control by force. Response says, my inner authority was never contained in their behavior. This does not mean you delay every action. Sometimes wisdom is immediate. A danger may require you to move. An injustice may require a clear refusal. A responsibility may require prompt attention. But even immediate action can arise from centered awareness rather than blind fear. A person may leave a burning room quickly without becoming inwardly chaotic. A mother may act at once to protect a child without surrendering all intelligence to panic. Speed is not the same as reactivity. The distinction lies in the state. What is moving you? Clarity, or the desperate need to escape an emotion. There is no virtue in slow action if delay is cowardice. There is no virtue in quick action if haste is fear. The outer form does not reveal the state by itself. You must know inwardly. This is why I tell you not to imitate composure as a performance. You are not learning to speak slowly so that others will believe you are powerful. You are not learning to hide your face so no one will know you care. You are not learning a mannerism. You are learning to remain aware of who you are while feeling moves through you. The truly composed person may speak passionately. She may weep openly. She may say no with great firmness. But beneath the movement is a center that has not accepted the event as a definition. She does not become smaller because another is unkind. She does not become unworthy because another withdraws. She does not become powerless because an institution delays. She does not become poor in identity because an expense appears. The surface responds. The center remains. A tree moves in the wind because it is alive. Its branches bend. Its leaves tremble. But the roots do not abandon the earth with every gust. You are not asked to become a tree without leaves. You are asked to remember the roots. The leaves are your passing reactions. The branches are the circumstances of the day. The roots are the state from which you live. If the roots are in being loved, a difficult exchange may move the branches but cannot redefine the tree. If the roots are in supply, an expense may require attention but cannot name the whole life scarcity. If the roots are in divine guidance, a closed road may alter the journey but cannot prove that no way exists. Remain rooted. This is another meaning of being unbothered, not untouched, rooted. Something may touch the branches. It does not uproot the being. There will be times when you do feel uprooted. Do not condemn yourself. The old state has been practiced for many years. A strong wind may awaken the whole habit of fear. Then return. You need not pretend that you never lost balance. Balance is restored by returning, not by denying the fall. Perhaps you receive a letter that carries unwelcome news. The first response is immediate. The heart contracts. The mind rushes ahead. You imagine all that may follow. Do not shame that first movement. Pause. Place the letter down if you can. Feel the chair beneath you. Notice that the entire future has not entered the room. Only a letter has entered the room. The paper contains words. Fear has supplied the world beyond the words. Separate them. Read what is there. Do not read what fear has written around it. Then ask, what practical action belongs to this moment? Not, how shall I solve the next 10 years? What belongs to this moment? Perhaps a reply. Perhaps an inquiry. Perhaps nothing until morning. Take the step that is present. Do not make the step carry the weight of the whole bridge. This is caring without panic. You care enough to respond. You are centered enough not to create a catastrophe larger than the event. Or perhaps another person brings you their distress. They speak anxiously. Their words are filled with fear. Because you love them, you may be tempted to enter their state with them. You imagine that sharing their panic is compassion. But if two people enter the same confusion, who remains to remember the way out? Compassion does not require you to drown beside the drowning person. It may require you to remain upon firm ground and offer a hand. You can hear another's fear without making it your inner conversation. You can acknowledge their pain without accepting their conclusion. You can say, I understand that this is difficult, without saying, therefore the worst must occur. Your steadiness may serve them more deeply than shared panic. This does not mean you lecture someone who is hurting. It means your inward state need not duplicate theirs. You may be tender without becoming frightened. You may be present without becoming absorbed. You may carry love without carrying every fearful story love encounters. This is especially important for the one who has spent much of her life caring for others. She has learned to measure love by the amount of worry she carries. If a child suffers, she suffers twice. If a partner is uncertain, she becomes uncertain for both. If a family member is troubled, she rehearses the trouble through the night. She believes that releasing worry would mean withdrawing love. But worry is not love. Love may inspire wise action. Love may remain near. Love may listen. Love may sacrifice when sacrifice is truly called for. But worry merely repeats the unwanted condition in imagination and exhausts the one who might otherwise act with clarity. You are allowed to love without imagining disaster. You are allowed to care without pre-living another's pain. You are allowed to support someone without making their state your residence. If you have confused worry with devotion, let the confusion end gently tonight. You do not prove love by tormenting yourself. You do not protect another by building scenes of their failure. You do not help by assuming that their difficulty is permanent. Let your inward image of them be larger than their present condition. See them supported. See them guided. See them capable. You need not force a scene. Simply refuse to define them by the trouble they are experiencing. That refusal is a form of love. You remain near without entering the prison. Being unbothered also does not mean tolerating mistreatment in the name of spiritual strength. Some have believed that if imagination is the cause, they must silently endure every outer condition while attempting to change it inwardly. But the state of fulfillment contains its own natural action. If you truly know yourself as worthy, you may no longer find certain treatment acceptable. If you know yourself as loved, you may cease begging where affection is continually withheld. If you know yourself as safe, you may leave what repeatedly harms you. If you know yourself as respected, you may speak a clear word that the former state would have been afraid to speak. Do not use the law to remain bound. Use it to change the identity from which action arises. The one who fears abandonment may tolerate indignity because she believes any connection is better than none. The one who knows herself cherished does not need to punish or threaten, but she also does not make a home in disrespect. She may say, "This is not the manner in which I choose to be treated." Her words need not carry hatred. The calm behind them gives them weight. True boundaries are often quieter than desperate arguments. A desperate argument seeks permission to have value. A boundary proceeds from value already accepted. You do not need to convince another that your boundary is reasonable before it becomes yours. You may listen, you may consider, but you do not surrender your inward knowing to another person's reaction. They may be displeased. Their displeasure is a wave. It need not become your destination. This is one of the most difficult practices for those who have built identity around pleasing others. Another person's disappointment feels like proof of wrongdoing. A changed expression feels dangerous. Silence feels like punishment. Then they abandon themselves to restore outer harmony. But harmony purchased by self-abandonment is not true harmony. It is fear arranged politely. The fulfilled state does not require you to become harsh. It allows you to remain kind without disappearing. You may say no and remain loving. You may leave the room and remain at peace. You may decline an invitation and remain worthy. You may change your mind and remain honest. You may permit another person to have an opinion without making their opinion your identity. This is freedom. You do not have to control their reaction in order to remain centered. The former self said, I can be at peace only if everyone understands me. The centered self says, I will speak truthfully, listen sincerely, and allow understanding to unfold in its own time. The former self said, I must correct every false impression. The centered self says, another's temporary idea of me does not create what I know myself to be. The former self said, I must defend every choice. The centered self says, explanation has its place, but I will not place my worth on trial. This is not arrogance. Arrogance demands superiority. Dignity requires only self-possession. A person who knows herself does not need to stand above another. She simply refuses to stand beneath another's changing judgment. Let this become part of your understanding of being unbothered. You do not rise above people. You rise above the habit of allowing their state to determine yours. You do not cease caring what your actions cause. You cease making another person's every response the measure of whether you were right to honor yourself. Care remains. Fear loses its office. There is also a form of false detachment, in which a person claims to trust the law, while neglecting obvious responsibility. She says, everything will work out, and refuses to answer the letter. She says, supply is mine, and ignores what wisdom asks her to address. She says, the body is perfect, and refuses reasonable care. She says, harmony is established, and avoids a conversation that inward clarity has already shown to be necessary. This is not faith. It is often fear of action hidden beneath spiritual language. Being unbothered does not mean being careless. The fulfilled state is not confused. It acts naturally. The person who knows herself supplied may still keep wise accounts, answer obligations, and use resources intelligently. She simply does not perform these acts from the identity of ruin. The person who knows herself whole may still accept help, seek appropriate care, and respect the body. She does not make the condition the final name of being. The person who assumes harmony may still have a direct conversation. She speaks from the state in which understanding is possible, rather than from a rehearsal of conflict. The person who trusts the bridge may still take the next step. She simply refuses to believe that everything depends upon her forcing every step after it. Composure clarifies responsibility. Fear often confuses responsibility with control. You are responsible for the honest step before you. You are not responsible for controlling every consequence. You are responsible for the state from which you speak. You are not responsible for making every person approve. You are responsible for responding wisely to the present circumstance. You are not responsible for solving all future circumstances in one night. You are responsible for selecting the end. You are not responsible for designing the whole bridge. Let responsibility become lighter, because it has been placed correctly. Perhaps you have carried responsibilities that never belonged to you. You have believed you must manage another person's emotions. You have believed you must prevent every misunderstanding. You have believed you must remain available at all hours to prove love. You have believed you must know the solution before anyone discovers that you are uncertain. You have believed you must hold the family together by carrying everyone's fear. No wonder you are tired. Much of your exhaustion may be the weight of offices to which you were never appointed. You may care without carrying what belongs to another. You may help without becoming the entire source of another's life. You may offer wisdom without forcing it to be received. You may love someone and allow them to make a choice. You may remain available to support without becoming responsible for every outcome. Release false responsibility. It is not kindness to teach others that your peace must be sacrificed before they can be whole. Let your composure become part of the gift you offer. Your presence says, difficulty is present, but it is not all-powerful. Your calm says, there may be an answer beyond what we presently see. Your refusal to panic creates room for another possibility. This is not emotional distance. It is love without fear's domination. Consider again the ship. A captain who cares for the passengers does not abandon the wheel to run among them shouting that the waves are high. He remains where his steadiness can serve the whole vessel. He hears the reports. He makes adjustments. He gives necessary orders. But he does not let the fear of the passengers become the navigator. His composure is not indifference to their safety. It is devotion to it. So your inward steadiness may be the most caring response available. When those around you are agitated, you need not add another agitated mind to the room. When another person speaks from fear, you need not answer from fear. When a child faces uncertainty, you need not supply them with your imagined disasters. When a loved one makes a mistake, you need not turn the mistake into an identity for them or for yourself. You may remain rooted enough to see a larger possibility. This is why inner mastery affects relationships without controlling them. People feel the state from which you meet them. They may not name it, but they respond to the absence of desperation. A pleading voice invites one kind of response. A dignified voice invites another. A defensive silence carries one meaning. A peaceful silence carries another. A boundary spoken from rage produces one atmosphere. The same boundary spoken from self-possession produces another. The words may be similar. The state gives them their life. The world responds not only to the sentence, but to the being behind the sentence. This is why you must not imitate calmness merely in tone. You may speak softly while inwardly screaming for approval. You may use measured words while imagining rejection. You may conceal reaction without changing residence. Go deeper. Do not ask only, how should the unbothered person behave? Ask, who is she within? She is not trying to persuade the world that she is safe. She has begun to know safety inwardly. She is not withholding words in order to manipulate another. She is silent because nothing wise needs to be said at that moment. She is not avoiding action. She is waiting until action comes from clarity. She is not refusing to feel. She is refusing to make feeling a prophecy. She is not detached from life. She is attached to the chosen state more deeply than to the temporary appearance. This inner loyalty may sometimes produce outward stillness and sometimes decisive movement. The form changes. The center remains. You may ask how you know whether you are suppressing or selecting. Suppression carries strain. It says, I must not feel this because the feeling is dangerous. Selection carries space. It says, I feel this, but I need not build my future from it. Suppression closes the body around the emotion. Selection allows the emotion to move while identity remains open. Suppression fears exposure. Selection has nothing to hide. Suppression may smile while inwardly rehearsing violence. Selection may say honestly, I am disturbed, and still refuse the old conclusion. You can tell by the inward atmosphere. Are you attempting to become numb, or are you remembering that you are larger than the sensation? Numbness is not the goal. Freedom is the goal. A numb heart cannot receive joy any more easily than pain. I do not ask you to close the gate of feeling. I ask you to become the keeper of meaning. Feeling may enter. You decide what it means. A surge of fear may mean the body remembers an old pattern. It need not mean danger is inevitable. A wave of sadness may mean something mattered deeply. It need not mean happiness is finished. Anger may mean a boundary has been crossed. It need not mean you must become hatred. Loneliness may mean you long for connection. It need not mean you are unlovable. The interpretation determines whether emotion remains movement or becomes residence. Be gentle in interpretation. You have often judged yourself for feeling at all. You say, I should know better. I should be stronger. I have studied the law, yet I still react. This judgment becomes another disturbance. You react to the event, then react to your reaction. You feel fear, then fear that fear will create more fear. You become sad, then accuse sadness of destroying the desired state. Now one wave has become a storm, because you have declared war upon the sea. Stop fighting the fact that you are capable of feeling. A passing emotion does not erase the state you have selected. The ship may roll and still maintain direction. The compass may tremble and still settle toward the chosen point. You may have a human moment and still return. Return is the practice, not the prevention of every wave. If you awaken tonight with the old thought, Let the first movement be what it is. Perhaps the heart tightens. Perhaps the question returns. Do not immediately say, I have failed to remain unbothered. That sentence would make the reaction another identity. Instead say, a wave has risen. Nothing more. A wave has risen. Feel the bed. Feel the support beneath the body. Remember the shore. The end remains selected. Then let the wave fall by itself. You do not have to push it down. You do not have to analyze why it rose at this particular hour. You do not have to solve the matter before sleep returns. The wave may move through. You remain the sea. This simple recognition can change the entire night. You no longer fear waking because waking becomes another opportunity to remember depth. You no longer fear thought because a thought is not a command. You no longer fear feeling because feeling is movement. You know where home is. Identity is residence. Let your residence be the fulfilled state. You may visit fear. You do not live there. You may pass through uncertainty. You do not change your address. You may stand for a moment in disappointment. You do not furnish the room. You return to being cherished. You return to being guided. You return to being supported. You return to being one whose inner peace is not available for every circumstance to seize. This is not a single decision made once. It becomes a habit of residence. At first, you notice yourself only after you have lived in fear for several hours. Then you return. Later, you notice after a few minutes. You return. Eventually, the old conclusion begins, and awareness interrupts it before the whole story forms. This does not happen through harsh discipline. It happens through familiarity with home. A traveler returns naturally to the place she knows as hers. Make peace familiar. Make dignity familiar. Make the chosen end familiar. Then the mind will begin to return there without command. Until that time, guide it kindly. Do not drag it. Do not strike it. Say, we do not live here now. There is the old room. We do not live here now. There is the old fear. We do not live here now. There is the familiar argument. We do not live here now. Then turn toward the new residence. Perhaps it is only a feeling of relief. Perhaps it is the quiet thought, I remain whole. Perhaps it is the image of a ship continuing through the night. Perhaps it is the sound of a trusted voice saying, everything is settled. Use what brings you home. You do not need to feel joy every time you return. A person entering her home after a long day may simply close the door and breathe. Let the fulfilled state feel like that. A door closing upon the noise. A place where you do not have to perform. A room in which another person's behavior cannot follow unless you carry it in. Do not carry it in tonight. Leave the conversation outside. Leave the letter upon the table. Leave the uncertainty for its proper hour. Enter the inward home without them. You are not neglecting them. You are refusing to sleep inside them. There is a difference. You may address them tomorrow from a clearer state. The night belongs to restoration. The mind that never leaves the problem cannot see beyond the problem. Rest creates distance, and distance allows imagination to select another end. You may care more wisely after you have rested. You may speak more honestly after the wave has passed. You may take a firmer step because fear no longer makes every option look dangerous. Therefore, rest is not withdrawal from responsibility. It can be preparation for right action. The world often praises immediate reaction. It believes quickness proves intelligence. Yet many complications are born from words spoken before the state was chosen. A letter sent in panic. A promise made in fear. A demand issued from wounded pride. A decision made merely to escape uncertainty. Then the person must spend days repairing what one uncentered hour created. The sacred pause saves energy. You need not answer everything immediately. You may say, I will consider this. You may say, I am not prepared to speak of it now. You may say nothing until the inward storm has moved. Silence can be wise when it is not used as punishment. Delay can be intelligent when it is not avoidance. The purpose is not to control the other person by withholding. The purpose is to prevent the old state from speaking in your name. Let the fulfilled self answer. If she has nothing to say yet, let her remain quiet. You are not obligated to offer your old reaction simply because it has always arrived quickly. The old self is familiar, not rightful. Every pause gives the new identity time to rise. Perhaps the old self says, pursue them before they leave. The new self says, what belongs to love does not require me to abandon dignity. The old self says, agree before they become displeased. The new self says, harmony does not require dishonesty. The old self says, spend what you do not have to prove you are secure. The new self says, security acts wisely. The old self says, ignore the obligation and call it faith. The new self says, faith and wisdom are not enemies. The old self says, remain where you are harmed because leaving means failure. The new self says, fulfillment may require another form. This inner dialogue is where composure becomes intelligent. You do not merely calm yourself. You select the self who will act. Ask, who is acting now? The frightened one, the rejected one, the one who must prove, the one who believes everything depends upon this moment, or the one who is already inwardly whole. You need not wait until you feel completely whole. You may ask what action would correspond to wholeness, and take one step in that direction. Perhaps wholeness means resting before answering. Perhaps it means speaking clearly. Perhaps it means seeking help. Perhaps it means ending an old pattern. Perhaps it means doing nothing because the impulse to act is only anxiety. The state reveals the next step more accurately than mental noise. This is why calm is not merely pleasant. It is perceptive. Fear narrows vision. It sees only the threat. It sees only the door that appears to close. It sees only the one person who appears to withdraw. It sees only the one channel through which provision was expected. Composure restores breath. It says, this may be one incident, not the entire end. There may be another door. There may be another conversation. There may be a meaning I cannot see while agitated. There may be an action that becomes clear after rest. This openness permits the bridge of incidents to remain larger than reason's first interpretation. You do not become careless with the event. You become less careless with meaning. A frightened interpretation made in 1 second may direct months of behavior. Is that not carelessness? To pause is to treat meaning with respect. You say, I will not give this event more significance than it has earned. I will not crown it before its place is known. I will not call the wave the destination. This is inner discipline without cruelty. There will be some events that do carry a clear meaning. An agreement may be broken. A line may be crossed. A condition may be unsafe. Remaining centered does not mean remaining confused about the obvious. But even when the meaning is clear, identity remains yours. The agreement was broken. You are not broken. The behavior was disrespectful. You are not made unworthy by it. The circumstance requires change. You are not powerless before the need to change. An ending has occurred. You are not the end. This distinction allows you to face truth without becoming imprisoned by it. Many avoid truth because they fear what it will make them feel about themselves. They remain in denial because they have not learned to separate event from identity. But when identity is secure inwardly, you can see more clearly. You can admit, this is not acceptable. You can admit, I made a mistake. You can admit, this path is finished. You can admit, help is needed, and none of these admissions destroys the divine awareness within you. Honesty becomes possible when shame no longer governs. This too is being unbothered. You are not unbothered by the consequences of action. You are unbothered in your essential worth. You may correct a mistake without becoming the mistake. You may apologize without becoming permanently guilty. You may learn without calling yourself a failure. You may change direction without declaring the journey wasted. You may take responsibility without accepting condemnation. The world often confuses responsibility with self-punishment. It believes a person is sincere only if she suffers long enough. But suffering does not repair what wisdom can repair. If you have acted wrongly, revise the inner cause, make amends where appropriate, and occupy another state. Do not build a monument to the old self. Move. A ship that discovers it is off course does not spend the night condemning the sea. It corrects direction. So may you. The wave does not define the voyage. The error does not define the traveler. The correction may begin now. Let this remove another burden from you. You do not have to be perfect to remain centered. You do not have to be innocent of every mistake. You do not have to control every emotion. You need only remember that consciousness is movable. A state can be left. A direction can be corrected. A story can be revised. An identity can be selected again. This is the mercy within the law. No event must become eternal merely because it occurred. No feeling must become character merely because it arose. No reaction must become destiny merely because it was repeated yesterday. You can return. The one who returns is not defeated by wandering. She knows the road. Let your road be toward inner wholeness, not numbness, not indifference. Wholeness. Wholeness can contain feeling without being divided by it. It can contain love and boundaries, compassion and discernment, action and rest, honesty and peace. It does not force you to choose between caring and remaining centered. You can possess both. Indeed, centered care is often deeper than reactive care, because it is not seeking relief from its own anxiety. It can remain present. It can listen without preparing an answer. It can give without demanding immediate proof that the gift was received properly. It can say no without hatred. It can say yes without fear. It can wait without collapsing. It can leave without cursing. It can stay without begging. This is love governed by awareness. And now, as the night grows quieter, notice whether you have been guarding yourself against the word unbothered, because you feared it would make you hard. You need not become hard. Let yourself become steady. Hardness resists all movement. Steadiness allows movement without losing foundation. A rigid branch may break in the wind. A living branch bends and returns. You may bend. You may feel. You may weep. You may need time. Then return. The return reveals strength more truly than rigid refusal to feel. Perhaps you have thought that tears mean you have lost your state. They do not. Tears may be the movement by which an old burden leaves. Do not make them prophecy. Let them come if they come. Then when they pass, ask where you wish to reside. Perhaps you choose peace, perhaps dignity, perhaps simply openness. You do not have to leap into celebration. A quiet room is enough. A single sentence may guide you home. I remain whole. Try it gently, not as a denial of pain, as a statement that pain does not contain the whole of you. I remain whole. The relationship may be uncertain. I remain whole. The answer may be delayed. I remain whole. A mistake may have occurred. I remain whole. Another person may misunderstand me. I remain whole. Wholeness is not the absence of necessary change. It is the center from which change can occur without self-destruction. Or perhaps your sentence is, I can care without fear. Let that become gentle. I can care without fear. I can love without chasing. I can help without carrying everything. I can respond without abandoning myself. I can feel without building a home in the feeling. These are not commands to become perfect tonight. They are doors into another manner of being. Enter one door. Remain for a breath. You may return to the old room later. If you do, return again. No shame. Composure grows through practice. At first you remember only after reaction, then during reaction, then before reaction completes itself. Eventually, the pause becomes natural. The ship feels the wave, and the hand remains upon the wheel. You do not have to grip the wheel violently. A light, steady contact is enough. The course is known. The shore remains. Let this image accompany you into sleep. The sea may move beneath you. That is the sea. The vessel may rise and fall. That is movement. A sound may come from the dark. That is a sound. A thought may return. That is a thought. An emotion may pass through the body. That is emotion. None of these is the destination. The destination remains the state you have chosen. Peace, love, security, wholeness, freedom. You may not see the shore tonight. The captain does not require the shore to be visible at every moment. The stars may be hidden. The weather may obscure the horizon. Yet direction can remain. You have selected the inner direction. You do not need constant evidence. You need not ask every wave whether the journey is working. A wave cannot answer. It knows only its movement. Do not consult temporary things about permanent identity. Do not ask another person's mood whether you are lovable. Do not ask one expense whether you are supported. Do not ask one rejection whether you belong. Do not ask one lonely night whether companionship is possible. Do not ask one difficult chapter how the book must end. Temporary appearances can report only their own form. They cannot tell you what consciousness is free to become. You know the state. Return to it. Perhaps you care about the circumstance enough to address it tomorrow. That is well. But you do not need to sleep inside its meaning tonight. Lay it down. Caring will remain without worry. Wisdom will remain without mental rehearsal. Love will remain without vigilance. Responsibility will remain without panic. What is genuine is not lost when fear is released. Fear has convinced you that it holds everything together. Let tonight prove otherwise. Release one fear. Does love disappear? No. Release one imagined argument. Does dignity disappear? No. Release 1 hour of calculation. Does responsibility disappear? No. The true qualities remain. Only the strain begins to leave. This is what you are permitted to discover. You may become calmer without becoming careless. You may become quieter without becoming weak. You may become less reactive without becoming distant. You may become inwardly unbothered while remaining deeply human. Let the word unbothered now take on a kinder meaning. Not numb, not cold, not indifferent, unpossessed. The event does not possess you. The emotion does not possess you. The opinion does not possess you. The delay does not possess you. The past does not possess you. You experience them, but your center remains free to select. Unbothered means unpossessed by temporary appearances. That is the freedom I would give you tonight. You are not required to remove every wave. You are remembering that no wave owns the ship. You are not required to stop every emotion. You are remembering that no emotion owns the house. You are not required to control every person. You are remembering that no person owns the divine center of your being. You may listen to their words. You may consider their needs. You may respond with kindness. But the state from which you live remains yours to choose. This choice may feel very small in the night. A breath, a pause, a refusal to complete the old story. But great directions are often changed by small movements. The ship turns gradually. At first, the sea around it looks the same. The stars appear in the same places. The waves continue. Yet the vessel is no longer traveling toward the old shore. So may your life appear unchanged while the inner course has shifted. Do not underestimate the turn. You no longer say, because I am hurt, I am rejected. You say, I am hurt, and still I am worthy of love. You no longer say, because I am afraid, danger must prevail. You say, fear is moving, and still I remain guided. You no longer say, because I care, I must worry. You say, I care, and therefore I choose the state from which I can respond wisely. You no longer say, because something matters, I must surrender my peace to it. You say, what matters can be held in peace. This is a new course. Let it become natural through repetition. When the old association returns, remember, care does not require panic. Love does not require self-abandonment. Responsibility does not require fear. Action does not require reactivity. Feeling does not require identity. One line may remain with you. Emotion is movement. Identity is residence. Let it repeat slowly within. Emotion is movement. Identity is residence. A wave moves. The ocean remains. A visitor enters. The house remains yours. Weather changes. The destination remains. You may feel tonight without becoming the feeling. You may care tonight without carrying the whole world. You may allow the unanswered matter to exist without making it your home. This is enough. No further performance is required. You do not have to prove that you are unbothered. The need to prove would itself be another disturbance. Simply notice where you live. If you find yourself in fear, return. If you find yourself arguing inwardly, return. If you find yourself carrying another person's state, place it gently outside your house and return. No violence, no condemnation. The door to the chosen state remains open. Enter again. Perhaps you hear the sea. Perhaps you feel the vessel beneath you. The night surrounds the ship. The shore is not visible, yet the course has been set. You may sleep while the vessel moves. You do not need to stand upon the deck watching every wave. The deeper intelligence of consciousness knows the direction. Let the hands release the wheel for these hours, not because the destination is forgotten, but because the course has been entrusted to the state. You have selected peace. You have selected wholeness. You have selected a life in which care no longer demands suffering as its proof. Rest inside that selection. You are not withdrawing from life. You are preparing to meet life without being consumed by it. You are not becoming indifferent. You are becoming capable of love without fear's constant interference. You are not denying pain. You are refusing to let pain introduce you to yourself. You are not neglecting responsibility. You are refusing the false responsibility of controlling every outcome. You are not pretending nothing matters. You are discovering that what matters can be held with an open hand. Let the hand be open now. Let the body be supported. Let the breath move without effort. The wave may come. The wave may pass. You remain. The feeling may rise. The feeling may fall. You remain. Another person may change. You remain. A circumstance may turn. You remain. Not frozen, present. Not indifferent, whole. Not untouched, unpossessed. You may care. You may respond. You may act. You may rest. And through all of it, the center from which you know yourself remains yours. You have now seen that a feeling may move through you without becoming your permanent residence. But there is another matter you must understand, for it explains why certain conditions seem to repeat even after you sincerely desire another life. The price of automatic reaction is rarely paid in the moment alone. It is paid in the state that the reaction renews. An event occurs once, but reaction may recreate it 100 times. A person delays an answer. That is the event. You imagine that the delay means you have been forgotten. You hear the person explaining why you do not matter. You picture another being preferred. You remember earlier disappointments and arrange them as witnesses. You enter tomorrow and feel the humiliation of still receiving no answer. You enter next week and imagine yourself finally admitting that hope was foolish. The delay occurred once. The abandonment has occurred repeatedly in imagination. A plan changes. That is the event. You immediately decide that the entire undertaking has failed. You see every consequence before one consequence has appeared. You imagine explaining the failure to others. You feel their disappointment. You hear yourself saying that nothing ever works as expected. One change in arrangement becomes a future filled with closed doors. The plan changed once. Failure has been rehearsed many times. An unexpected expense appears. That is the event. The figure upon the page is definite, but the future you build around it is not. In a few moments, you have spent money not yet required, lost resources not yet lost, and endured conversations that have not taken place. You see the account emptied. You feel the fear of another obligation arriving. You imagine months of insufficiency gathered around one present expense. The expense occurred once. Ruin has been lived inwardly again and again. Another person enters the room with a troubled expression. That is the event. You do not know whether they are tired, preoccupied, disappointed in themselves, or burdened by something entirely unrelated to you. Yet the old state speaks before they do. It says, you have done something wrong. Their silence is about you. Their distance is a verdict upon your worth. You examine your last conversation, your tone, your appearance, your every action. You prepare to apologize for an offense that may not exist. The expression appeared once. The judgment has been manufactured within you. This is the hidden price of reaction. You do not merely experience what has happened. You extend it. You multiply it. You carry it beyond its natural boundary and give it a future. Reaction is imagination moving without conscious direction. This is why the subject is so important. People often imagine that they use imagination only when they sit quietly, close their eyes, and deliberately picture a desired scene. They believe imagination begins when a practice begins and ends when the practice is over. But imagination is active whenever you give inward form to what is not presently before the senses. When you hear another person's future words before they are spoken, you are imagining. When you see tomorrow's failure while lying in tonight's bed, you are imagining. When you feel the shame of an event that has not occurred, you are imagining. When you mentally explain a disaster to people who are not present, you are imagining. When you suffer a future absence, loss, rejection, or humiliation, you are inhabiting an imaginal scene. The faculty is the same. Only the direction differs. One person deliberately imagines fulfillment for a few minutes, then spends the remaining hours unconsciously imagining contradiction. He wonders why the desired scene has not become dominant, but he has fed it like a candle, and fed the feared scene like a furnace. I do not say this to blame you. Blame would merely create another unwanted state. You would begin imagining yourself as the one who has used imagination incorrectly, the one who has ruined opportunities, the one whose thoughts are dangerous. Then fear would attach itself not only to circumstances, but to the mind itself. No, I show you this so you may become free. You cannot redirect a movement you do not recognize. Once reaction is seen as unconscious imagination, the old habit loses some of its innocence. You can no longer tell yourself that worry is merely happening to you. You begin to see how you enter it, continue it, decorate it with detail, and return to it as though repetition might somehow provide safety. Worry often disguises itself as responsibility. It says, I must consider every possible outcome, so I will not be surprised. I must imagine what could go wrong, so I can be prepared. I must continue thinking about this person because the relationship matters. I must keep the problem before me, or I may overlook the answer. I must rehearse the danger so that danger cannot deceive me. But there is a difference between practical consideration and psychological residence. Practical consideration examines what is known and determines whether a present action is required. Worry leaves the present and inhabits scenes of suffering. Practical consideration asks, what can wisely be done now? Worry asks, how many ways can this end badly? Practical consideration may produce one clear action. Worry produces endless movement without arrival. Practical consideration eventually concludes. Worry repeats because repetition, not resolution, is its true habit. You may spend an hour worrying and tell yourself you have been working upon the problem. But at the end of the hour, no action has been taken, no new fact has been discovered, and no answer has been received. The only thing that has changed is the state of the body. It now carries the tension of scenes that never occurred. The heart has responded to imagined danger. The stomach has responded to imagined loss. The muscles have responded to imagined conflict. The night has been spent inside an imagined future. This is not neutral preparation. It is an imaginal act performed without awareness. The body does not continually ask whether the scene comes from the senses or from imagination. If you enter it vividly enough, the body participates. It prepares. It contracts. It releases the chemistry of danger. It alters the breath. It keeps watch. Then the bodily response becomes evidence for the story. You say, I feel this deeply, therefore the danger must be real. But the feeling may be the result of the scene you have repeatedly entered, not proof that the scene is destined to occur. This is how reaction builds its own courtroom. The event is introduced as evidence. Imagination supplies an interpretation. The body responds to the interpretation. The response is then presented as further evidence. I feel afraid, therefore something terrible must be near. The circle closes. And because the circle feels complete, you call it intuition. Yet true inner knowing is often quiet. It does not need to rehearse itself for hours. It may guide you clearly, but it does not usually torment you with 1,000 scenes. Fear is noisy because it must continually recreate its authority. Knowing can speak once. You must learn to distinguish them. Fear rushes toward the conclusion. Knowing may leave the matter open. Fear multiplies images. Knowing clarifies the next step. Fear makes the whole future feel immediately present. Knowing returns you to what can be met now. Fear says, if you stop thinking, you will be unprepared. Knowing says, clarity does not require self-punishment. Do not ask the body, in its frightened state, to tell you the whole truth about the future. Calm the state first, then consider what remains. A man looking through disturbed water sees distorted shapes. He may swear the world beneath the surface is twisted, But when the water becomes still, he discovers that the distortion belonged to the medium through which he looked. Reaction disturbs the medium of perception. The event may be real. The conclusion may be distorted. Let us return to the delayed answer. Perhaps you are waiting to hear from someone whose response matters deeply. Each hour without news seems to acquire weight. At first, there is merely no answer. But after you react, the silence becomes crowded. It contains rejection. It contains indifference. It contains another person. It contains a decision made against you. It contains a future conversation in which you are told what you feared. The silence itself said none of these things. You filled it. Imagination does not tolerate a vacuum for long. If you do not consciously choose the meaning, habit supplies one. This is why silence can feel more painful than an explicit answer. The mind uses the open space to create every possible injury. But open space can be used differently. You may say, no answer has come. That is all I know. Notice the simplicity. No answer has come. Not, I have been rejected. Not, I have been forgotten. Not, this always happens. Not, the future is closing. Only the fact. No answer has come. Now you are no longer suffering the invented world around the fact. You remain available to whatever the event actually becomes. This does not guarantee that every answer will be the answer you first desired. The law is not a demand that every person conform to fear's preferred form, but it frees you from living through 10 painful endings when only one event will eventually occur. And more deeply, it prevents you from continually occupying the state of the rejected one. For every time you interpret silence as abandonment, you do more than comment upon the silence. You renew an identity. I am the one who waits and is forgotten. This identity then colors other events. A friend is busy, and you see rejection. A family member is distracted, and you see rejection. A letter is delayed, and you see rejection. An invitation does not come, and you see rejection. The state gathers evidence because everything is interpreted through it. Thus, one reaction may be more costly than it appears. It does not merely disturb 1 hour. It strengthens the lens through which tomorrow will be seen. The same is true of changed plans. Suppose an arrangement upon which you depended is altered. Perhaps a meeting is postponed, a journey is delayed, a position is reconsidered, or another person changes their intention. The event may require a practical response, yet before practical wisdom can speak, the old identity rushes forward. Nothing is dependable. People always disappoint me. Whenever I become hopeful, something goes wrong. I should have known better than to trust. Notice that these statements are larger than the event. A meeting changed, but you have pronounced all people unreliable. A journey was delayed, but you have pronounced hope dangerous. One person reconsidered, but you have pronounced trust foolish. Reaction turns the particular into the universal. It takes one stone and builds an entire prison. Then every new incident is viewed from inside the prison. You may say, I am only being realistic. But realism does not require exaggeration. Realism can say, this plan has changed. Fear says, all plans fail. Realism says, I do not yet know the consequence. Fear says, the worst consequence is already certain. Realism asks what action is appropriate. Fear uses the event to resurrect every former disappointment. To remain unbothered is not to deny that the plan changed. It is to refuse the enlargement. This changed. The whole future has not yet changed against me. I may need to adjust. I do not need to abandon the destination. One path has moved. The state I have selected remains available. You see how much energy is preserved when the event remains its true size. Reaction is expensive because it makes every event enormous. A word becomes a verdict. A delay becomes a destiny. An expense becomes a lifetime. A mood becomes an identity. You carry the weight of the imagined whole, while only the small event is actually present. Perhaps this is why you feel so tired. You have not carried only today. You have carried every tomorrow fear could build from today. You have carried possible conversations, possible losses, possible judgments, possible endings. You have paid emotional interest upon debts that may never exist. You would never willingly hand over money for a house you did not purchase. yet you hand over peace for futures you have not entered. Worry collects payment in advance. It demands that you suffer now, in case suffering arrives later. Then, if the feared event never occurs, the suffering already endured is rarely returned. The body has still lived it. The night has still been lost. The relationship with the present has still been disturbed. And if difficulty does come, worry has not necessarily prepared you. It may have exhausted the very strength needed to respond. A soldier who remains fully alarmed through every quiet night arrives at the actual hour of action depleted. Preparation includes rest. Wisdom includes conserving energy. Clarity includes refusing imaginary emergencies. This does not mean you will never consider an unpleasant possibility. Human life sometimes requires foresight, but foresight is not the same as inhabiting the feared scene emotionally. You may make an arrangement without becoming the disaster you wish to prevent. You may save prudently without living in scarcity. You may ask a question without assuming rejection. You may prepare for a conversation without rehearsing humiliation. You may take care of the body without imagining every sensation into a catastrophe. The action can be wise, while the state remains whole. Reaction does not merely influence how you feel, it influences how you behave. When silence has been interpreted as rejection, you may send words you would not otherwise send. You may demand reassurance. You may withdraw before being left. You may accuse before facts are known. You may create the very distance you feared. When a changed plan has been interpreted as failure, you may abandon a path that was merely being adjusted. You may refuse another opportunity because you are too busy mourning the first form. When an expense has been interpreted as ruin, you may act hastily. You may accept an arrangement beneath your true interests. You may make decisions from urgency rather than proportion. When another person's mood has been interpreted as a judgment of your worth, you may become smaller in their presence. You may explain yourself unnecessarily. You may seek permission to exist comfortably in the room. Then the outer consequences seem to confirm the original interpretation. You say, "See, I was right to be afraid." But fear participated in the sequence. It influenced the words spoken, the posture taken, the decision made, the opportunity ignored, the boundary abandoned. This is not said to make you guilty for every difficulty. Life is complex, and many states meet in every event. I do not reduce the whole human story to one conscious thought. I speak of the place where your freedom is immediate. You may not know every cause that brought an event to the door, but you can decide whether the event will be given fresh creative life through automatic reaction. The past may have produced the messenger. You choose the reply. The old state may have shaped the appearance. You choose whether to renew the old state. The event may contain pain. You choose whether pain will be made into prophecy. This is enough responsibility. Do not add blame. Blame keeps attention upon the former self. Freedom turns toward the new one. Say, "I have reacted in this way because the path was familiar. Now I am becoming conscious of the path." That is all. You do not have to condemn every former night in which worry ruled. You were trying to find safety using the means you understood. The mind believed that anticipation could prevent surprise. It believed that if it imagined pain first, pain would be less powerful later. But imagined pain is still pain to the one experiencing it. The shield became another wound. Tonight, you may place the shield down. Not forever, if forever feels too large. For this hour, you do not need to rehearse the blow. You do not need to prepare a speech for the judgment. You do not need to construct the ending. You may leave the event where it occurred. This is a subtle but profound practice. Leave the event where it occurred. The conversation happened in the afternoon. Do not place it in the bed. The bill arrived upon the table. Do not place it in the chest. The person's mood belonged to their face. Do not place it upon your identity. The changed plan belonged to the calendar. Do not write it across the whole future. Leave things where they are. Reaction carries them inward and makes them intimate. A word spoken by another becomes your own inner voice. A figure written upon a page becomes tension within the body. A silence outside becomes noise inside. You may reverse this movement. The word belongs to the speaker. The figure belongs to the present account. The silence belongs to the present interval. The event belongs to its time. I remain the awareness deciding what state shall be carried forward. This is not avoidance. You may return to the practical matter when needed, but you no longer confuse carrying it constantly with dealing with it effectively. A stone may be placed upon a table until it is needed. It does not have to be held in the hand all night. Set the matter down. If an answer can be found tonight through clear action, take the action. If no action is available, carrying the tension is unnecessary. This simple question may serve you. Is there something wise to do now? If yes, do it as calmly as you can. If no, stop using imagination as though worry were an action. The mind may resist. It may say, but I must keep thinking. Ask it, what new fact has this thought produced? What present action has it clarified? Has it brought wisdom, or only another scene? If the thought merely repeats the feared ending, you are not solving, you are rehearsing. Name it gently. This is rehearsal, not preparation. Then leave the stage. You do not have to complete the play. The curtain may fall in the middle of fear's performance. No audience demands the ending. You may walk out. Imagine how many plays you have attended inwardly. The play in which you are rejected. The play in which the money is not enough. The play in which the illness grows. The play in which another person misunderstands you. The play in which an opportunity disappears. You know the lines because you have attended them many times. Sometimes you are the actor, sometimes the observer, sometimes the judge. Yet all the roles are performed within your own awareness. You may choose another theater, or tonight, choose no theater at all. Let the stage remain empty. An empty stage is not failure. It is freedom from the former script. The new scene can be selected later, when the mind is softer. For now, cease rehearsing what you do not wish to live. This alone can restore great energy. You have not realized how much attention is required to maintain an unwanted future. It must be repeatedly imagined because it does not presently exist. It must be emotionally animated. It must be supplied with voices, expressions, places, consequences, and bodily feeling. Fear is a tireless dramatist. It takes one fact and writes 1,000 scenes, but it cannot continue without your awareness serving as its stage. You are the stage. You are also the one who may refuse the production. This is your authority. Not the authority to prevent every thought from appearing, but the authority not to continue the performance. The first image may arise automatically. The second is often habit. The third is participation. At any point, you may become aware. There is the scene. I do not need to enter it. Perhaps the image remains faintly. Let it remain without enlargement. You do not have to wrestle it away. Wrestling is another form of attention. See it as a picture losing light. Do not add sound. Do not add consequence. Do not ask what comes next. Let it become incomplete. An incomplete, fearful scene is safer than a completed one repeatedly felt as real. Then turn toward the present sensation of the bed, the room, the breath. Return from the imagined future to the actual hour. Where are you now? Not tomorrow. Now. You are lying here. The feared conversation is not taking place in this room. The imagined loss has not entered this moment. The future you constructed is not physically present. There may be a real matter waiting to be addressed, but this second contains more safety than imagination has admitted. Feel the difference between a present difficulty and an imagined totality. A present difficulty has boundaries. It has a time, a place, a known form. The imagined totality has no boundary. It spreads into every future and contaminates every possibility. Bring the matter back within its true boundary. This is occurring now. That is all I know. The rest has not been decided. These words do not promise a particular outcome. They restore honesty. Fear claims knowledge it does not possess. It says, I know how this ends. You may answer, no, you know only how you have imagined it ending. There is a great difference. The imagined ending may feel familiar because it resembles the past, but resemblance is not inevitability. The mind uses memory as a prophecy. This happened before, therefore it must happen again. But the past was lived from former states, former expectations, former relationships with self. Even if the outward arrangement resembles an earlier one, the awareness meeting it can be different. A familiar door can be approached by a different person. A familiar conversation can be heard from a different state. A familiar challenge can receive another response. The pattern is not complete merely because the first note resembles an old song. Do not sing the rest automatically. Pause. Perhaps this composition changes here. Perhaps the old melody ends. Perhaps silence follows. Perhaps another key begins. You do not know. Let not knowing become a sanctuary rather than a threat. Reaction hates the sanctuary of not knowing because it cannot control what remains open. But openness is where the new can enter. The old state thrives upon certainty of failure. Remove that certainty. You need not replace it immediately with certainty of triumph if that feels strained. Begin with honesty. The ending is not yet known to the senses. Therefore, I will not suffer one ending as though it were fact. This is rational as well as spiritual. Yet fear will call it foolish, because fear has mistaken pessimism for intelligence. Some believe that expecting the worst makes them wise. If good arrives, they are relieved. If difficulty arrives, they say they were prepared. But in order to preserve this image of wisdom, they live in continuous rehearsal of pain. What a price to pay for being able to say, I knew it. The fulfilled life does not require you to win an argument with tomorrow. You do not need the satisfaction of being proven right about failure. Release the need to predict. Prediction is often an attempt to control uncertainty by sacrificing hope. But control purchased through despair is not control. It is imprisonment. You may face uncertainty with open eyes and an open ending. You may say, I do not know what the outer event will be, but I know the state from which I choose to meet it. This is true preparation. You prepare the identity, not every imagined circumstance. You become the one who is supported. Then whatever action is required arises from support. You become the one who retains dignity. Then whatever conversation occurs is met from dignity. You become the one who remains inwardly whole. Then even an unwanted event cannot divide you in the old manner. Preparation of state is deeper than rehearsal of disaster. This is why I teach assumption. An assumption is not merely a sentence about what shall happen. It is the identity from which you encounter what appears. If you assume abandonment, every silence is interpreted accordingly. If you assume being cherished, silence may still be noticed, but it does not immediately become a verdict. If you assume insecurity, every expense announces danger. If you assume supply, an expense may require action, but it does not define the whole structure of life. If you assume unworthiness, another person's mood becomes a trial. If you assume worth, their mood may remain simply their mood. The event may look similar. The lived world differs because meaning differs, and meaning guides reaction. Reaction reinforces assumption. Assumption shapes further perception and action. This is the cycle. You are learning where to enter it consciously. Do not wait until the whole outer world changes. Begin where the interpretation forms. There, in the instant after the event, before the story, before the identity, before the future, there is the point of power. You may not catch it immediately at first. Perhaps the story runs for an hour before you become aware. That is well. The moment of awareness is still the point of power. You stop. You say, I have been extending the event. Then you gently separate fact from imagination. What happened? Only what happened. What have I added? Be honest without judgment. I added abandonment. I added ruin. I added humiliation. I added permanence. I added the belief that this always happens. I added the future. Once you see the additions, they are no longer identical with the event. They become choices, habits, scenes. What has been added can be removed, not by violent erasure, by withdrawing agreement. The silence exists. Abandonment is not yet decided. The expense exists. Ruin is not yet decided. The plan changed. Failure is not yet decided. The person is troubled. My worth is not decided by their expression. This is how the event returns to its proper size. You may feel the body resist because it has already accepted the larger story. It may continue to hold fear even after the mind understands. Do not demand immediate bodily obedience. The body has been living the imagined future. Give it time to return. Speak gently. That future is not happening now. The conclusion has not been decided. You may release a little. Perhaps the shoulders lower only slightly. Perhaps the breath remains shallow for a while. You are not failing. The state is changing direction before the body has completed the old movement. A carriage continues rolling after the horse has stopped pulling. Let it slow. Do not add new fear because the body still trembles. A trembling body is not a prophecy. It is a body completing a response. Remain near it without becoming it. There is fear moving, and I am here. There is tension moving, and I am here. The future remains open, and I am here. Awareness itself becomes the calm companion of the body. You do not abandon yourself because you reacted. This is important. Many people are frightened not only by circumstances, but by their own reactions. They say, because I panicked, I have created disaster. Because I worried, the old state must continue. Because I imagined the worst, the law will punish me with it. No law punishes you for one human movement. States are strengthened through occupancy, but occupancy can change. The remedy for an unwanted scene is not terror about having imagined it. The remedy is selection. Return to another state. Do not imagine fear as an all-powerful curse. That belief gives fear greater authority. A thought is not a divine sentence merely because it passed through you. A scene is not destiny because it appeared once. You are not required to purify the mind of every unwanted image before life can become beautiful. You are asked to become conscious of where you repeatedly live. Let the old scene be a visitor. Do not build it a permanent room. Let the reaction be movement. Do not give it residence. You already know this distinction. Now see how it applies to imagination itself. An imaginal scene may pass. An imaginal state is where you settle. If the unwanted scene came and went, let it go. Do not call it back in order to correct it perfectly. You may spend more time correcting the fear than the fear originally occupied. Simply choose again. The destination remains. The course can be restored. A ship does not return to the harbor because one gust pushed it slightly aside. The captain adjusts. Adjust. I was imagining abandonment. I now choose to leave the silence open. I was imagining ruin. I now choose the feeling that an answer can exist beyond what I presently see. I was imagining failure. I now choose not to abandon the desired end because one plan changed. I was making another person's mood my identity. I now return their mood to them and my identity to consciousness. These are adjustments. Quiet, precise, no drama. You do not have to produce immediate joy. The absence of the old conclusion is enough. Neutral ground is sacred when you have lived in automatic catastrophe. Stand upon neutral ground. I do not yet know. This has not been decided. The event is present. The meaning remains open. From this ground, a desired assumption can later become natural. You may ask why it is so difficult to leave meaning open. It is because the old story offers familiarity. Even painful familiarity can feel safer than uncertainty. You know how abandonment feels. You know the speeches. You know the physical contraction. You know what role to play. The desired state may be unfamiliar. Being calmly loved may feel stranger than being anxiously uncertain. Supply may feel less familiar than constant calculation. Peace may feel so unusual that the mind expects danger to follow it. Thus, reaction often returns you not to what is true, but to what is known. The old house may be uncomfortable, yet you know where every chair stands. The new house is dark because you have not lived there long enough. Do not confuse unfamiliarity with falsehood. The new state may feel uncertain simply because you have not rehearsed it as often. Every time you stop completing the old story, you make room to learn another one. Every time silence remains only silence, abandonment loses naturalness. Every time an expense remains one circumstance rather than a prophecy, security becomes more imaginable. Every time another's expression remains separate from your worth, dignity becomes more stable. The new path is created not only by imagining the desired scene, but by refusing to extend the unwanted one. This is an overlooked form of discipline. People believe discipline means repeating affirmations for hours. Sometimes discipline means stopping after the first fearful thought. The first thought says, perhaps they have forgotten me. The disciplined mind does not follow it into a week of silence, another person, a final rejection, and a wounded future. It says, that is one possible story created by the old state. I do not need to continue. Then it rests. This restraint is creative. A painter creates not only by adding color, but by knowing when not to add another stroke. The old reaction has covered many canvases with unwanted detail. Tonight, leave space. The delayed answer does not need a face of rejection painted upon it. The changed plan does not need dark skies extending across every year. The expense does not need a whole landscape of poverty. The mood of another does not need your name written beneath it. Leave the canvas open. The desired state can later supply another picture. Or perhaps no detailed picture is needed. A simple emotional atmosphere may be enough. The answer comes, and you feel relief. The plan changes again, and the path becomes clearer. The expense is met. The person's mood passes without affecting your worth. You need not know the exact sequence. You are ceasing to claim the least desired sequence as fact. This is a great beginning. As you become less reactive, you may notice that the world itself appears less hostile. Not because every event has changed immediately, but because you no longer force every event into the shape of an enemy. The letter is a letter. The delay is a delay. The silence is silence. The expression is an expression. You deal with what exists rather than with the army of consequences imagination has summoned around it. Life becomes lighter because it returns to its actual proportions. A day becomes one day, not the proof of all days. A mistake becomes one mistake, not the identity of failure. A refusal becomes one refusal, not evidence that every door is closed. A lonely evening becomes one evening, not a prophecy of endless loneliness. You stop making eternity from an hour. Fear always speaks in words such as always and never. This always happens. Nothing ever changes. I will never recover. No one will ever understand. The present difficulty becomes immortal through language. Notice these words when they arise. They reveal that reaction has exceeded the event. The event is temporary. The statement is eternal. Do not grant eternity to a passing appearance. Say, this is what I feel now. This is what appears now. Now is honest. Always is often imagination. Now leaves room for movement. Always seals the door. You are learning to leave the door open. Not because you are naive, but because consciousness is movable and circumstances are fluid. A state that has been sustained may change. A person may change. A condition may change. Your relation to a condition may change. A path unseen today may be visible tomorrow. Why then should 1 hour be permitted to pronounce forever? Do not make a permanent covenant with a temporary state. You may experience fear without promising to return to it tomorrow. You may feel disappointment without swearing loyalty to it. You may admit that tonight is difficult without appointing difficulty as the ruler of your life. This language matters because words reveal identification. I am having a difficult night differs from my life is hopeless. One describes an experience, the other occupies a state. I have not received the answer differs from I am forgotten. One reports, the other identifies. An expense has appeared differs from I am financially ruined. One is present fact, the other is an imagined totality. Become precise. Precision protects imagination from careless enlargement. The fearful mind dislikes precision because precision limits its drama. It wishes to speak in absolutes. Bring it back to the actual event. What exactly occurred? What exactly is known? What has been imagined? This simple inquiry can expose the hidden production. Perhaps the person said only, I need time. Fear translated it as, I no longer want you in my life. Perhaps the letter said the decision was delayed. Fear translated it as, the decision will be against you. Perhaps the account showed an expense. Fear translated it as, you will never have enough. Perhaps the plan changed by 1 week. Fear translated it as, everything has collapsed. The translation, not merely the event, has disturbed you. And because translation is an act of meaning, another translation is possible. I need time may mean exactly that, and nothing more. The decision is delayed, may leave the outcome entirely open. An expense may be met through means not yet considered. A changed week may alter the bridge without destroying the destination. You do not have to force a pleasant translation. Begin by removing the exaggerated one. This is enough to release emotional pressure. The mind says, perhaps disaster. You answer, perhaps not. Two words can reopen the world, perhaps not. The silence may not mean rejection. The delay may not mean denial. The expense may not mean ruin. The mood may not be about me, perhaps not. Do not use the phrase mechanically. Let it restore the existence of possibility. Fear has presented one future as the only future. Perhaps not reminds you that imagination has mistaken itself for prophecy. The future remains unwritten in form. The state you occupy participates in what is written. Choose carefully, but not anxiously. Anxiety about choosing becomes another reaction. You do not have to select the perfect sentence. You need only stop unconsciously selecting the worst conclusion. Peace begins there. The great power of awareness is not merely that it can imagine a desired future. It can refuse to continue an undesired one. There is mercy in stopping. You may stop a scene halfway. You may stop an argument in the middle. You may stop a prediction before it reaches its conclusion. You may stop explaining yourself to an imaginary audience. You may stop rehearsing what you will say if the worst occurs. You may stop now. No completion is required. Fear will claim that an unfinished thought remains dangerous, but an unfinished feared scene deprived of feeling is merely a fading image. Let it fade. Turn toward something simple and present, the breath moving, the weight of the body, the quiet of the room, the sound of my voice, the fact that this moment is here and the imagined future is not. The senses, which earlier seemed to imprison you in circumstances, can now help return you from imaginary circumstances to the room. Feel what is actually supporting you. Hear what is actually present. The bed does not ask you to predict. The darkness does not ask you to conclude. The night does not demand an answer. The whole imagined future may dissolve back into one present fact. There is a matter unfinished. That is all. An unfinished matter is not the same as a failed matter. A silent interval is not the same as abandonment. An uncertain figure is not the same as ruin. A troubled expression is not the same as a judgment of you. Separate them. Let the distinction bring space. You may have lived so long in immediate interpretation that simple observation feels incomplete. The mind says, but what does it mean? You may answer, meaning can wait until truth reveals more. This is not refusal to understand. It is refusal to manufacture understanding from fear. There are meanings that become clear only after time has placed an event within a larger sequence. A changed plan may later be seen as redirection. A delayed meeting may allow another event to occur. A silence may permit emotions to settle. An expense may lead to a wise reordering. Or perhaps an event will remain simply inconvenient, without becoming a sacred lesson. Not every difficulty needs to be glorified, but none must automatically be made into a sentence against your life. You can leave meaning modest. This was unpleasant. This requires attention. This hurt. This must change. These statements may be true without becoming prophecies. The mistake is not in naming pain. The mistake is in naming destiny from pain. You may say, this hurt me. Do not add, therefore I shall always be hurt. You may say, this plan failed in its present form. Do not add, therefore I am a failure. You may say, this expense concerns me. Do not add, therefore there will never be enough. You may say, this person is distant tonight. Do not add, therefore I am unworthy of love. The first sentence responds to experience. The second sentence creates identity. Keep the sentence close to the event. Do not let it colonize the whole self. This discipline preserves truth and freedom together. You do not lie about what happened. You refuse to lie about what must happen. The first is observation. The second is fear pretending to be knowledge. As you listen now, perhaps one event from the day is already attempting to rise. You may see the face, the paper, the empty place, the altered plan, the expression, the unanswered question. Let it appear gently. Do not enter it at once. See it as an event contained within a frame. The frame has edges. It does not occupy the entire mind. Outside the frame is awareness. You are the one looking. The scene is not looking at you. It cannot name you. It cannot force you to continue it. Notice what the mind normally adds. Perhaps it adds words. Remove the words for a moment. Perhaps it adds tomorrow. Bring the scene back to the moment in which it occurred. Perhaps it adds your identity. Remove your name from the event. There is the event, and here are you. Separate. The event may have touched your experience. It has not entered the center unless you join yourself to it. You may choose not to join. This is not denial. It is placement. The circumstance belongs in the world of passing form. Your chosen identity belongs at the center. Let form move. Let identity remain selected. What identity would you choose if the event did not possess the authority to decide? Perhaps you remain cherished, perhaps supported, perhaps guided, perhaps worthy, perhaps simply open. Do not force a magnificent identity if the whole being is tired. Choose the minimum truth that returns power. I am not defined by this. That may be enough. Or, this does not decide everything. Or, I do not need to continue the story. Let the simplest accepted sentence serve. Then release the scene. You do not need to replace it with a vivid miracle tonight. The first miracle may be that the scene no longer expands. The delayed answer remains only delayed. The changed plan remains only changed. The expense remains one present matter. The mood remains another person's movement. The old imagination has not been allowed to complete the least desired future. Something has already shifted. You have withdrawn the automatic agreement. The old state has not received its usual nourishment. This may feel uneventful because reaction is dramatic and restraint is quiet. But quiet acts can alter entire sequences. One unsent word prevents a conflict. One unaccepted interpretation preserves a relationship. One night without catastrophic rehearsal gives the body strength for tomorrow's action. One refusal to identify with scarcity permits a wise opportunity to be seen. One moment in which another's mood is not taken personally prevents you from entering an old role. Do not underestimate what does not happen. The absence of reaction may be the hidden beginning of change. A fire continues only while fuel is supplied. You need not attack the flame. Stop feeding it. The old narrative may burn for a little while from what has already been given. Let it consume the remaining fuel. Do not add another memory. Do not add another prediction. Do not add another imaginary conversation. The flame will lower. The body will learn that not every spark must become a fire. This is how you become inwardly unbothered, not by making the world sparkless, but by ceasing to offer every spark a field of dry imagination. The event is a spark. The meaning is the field. Choose what is allowed to burn. Perhaps you have given fear a whole landscape. Tonight, make the landscape less available. There may still be one small flame. Let it fade safely. You need not remain awake watching it. The night can pass without your supervision. The event may have happened. The body may have reacted. The old story may have begun. But nothing requires you to finish it. There is no duty to carry it into sleep. There is no wisdom in rehearsing its worst consequence. There is no love in imagining abandonment. There is no responsibility in pre-living ruin. There is no protection in making another's mood your worth. Set down the interpretation. Keep only what is known. What is known may be small. An answer is delayed. A plan has changed. An expense has appeared. A person seems troubled. These facts may require attention later. They do not require a condemned future now. Let the future return to openness. Let openness return to the body. The chest need not hold a year of imagined events. The stomach need not prepare for every possible loss. The jaw need not defend against a conversation not taking place. The eyes need not search the darkness for an answer. One event belongs to one moment. You are here in another moment now. The room is quiet. The body is supported. The future has not entered. You are allowed to stop paying the hidden price of reaction. No more emotional interest upon imaginary debt. No more suffering in advance. No more making one event immortal through repetition. No more confusing worry with care. No more calling rehearsal preparation. You may prepare through clarity. You may care through presence, you may act through wisdom, and you may rest before the whole meaning is known. Let the central distinction become very quiet within you. Something happened. Then you told yourself what it meant. These are two movements, not one. The first may be beyond recall. The second remains open to awareness. Something happened. The mind rushed forward. Now the mind may return. You are not required to deny the first movement. You are free to revise the second. And perhaps, for tonight, you need not decide upon another meaning at all. Leave it open. Leave it unjudged. Leave it outside the bedroom of consciousness. You may understand more later. You may act later. You may receive another fact. You may see the place of the incident within a bridge not yet complete. But now there is only rest and the recovery of your own imaginative authority. The event may have happened, but the meaning has not yet been decided. There is a moment so small that most people pass through it without ever knowing it exists. It appears after something has happened, but before the mind has decided what the happening means. It may last no longer than a breath. It may be hidden beneath the first tightening of the body. Yet within that small interval lies a freedom great enough to alter the direction of an entire life. Something occurs. A word is spoken. A letter arrives. A plan changes. A familiar face becomes distant. A door that appeared open is suddenly closed. The body responds before you have had time to think. The chest tightens. The stomach contracts. The breath becomes shallow. An old memory rises, and with it comes an old conclusion. Here it is again. I am being rejected. Something is going wrong. I am about to lose what matters. I should have known this would happen. That conclusion may appear so quickly that it seems to belong to the event itself. You imagine the event has spoken, when in truth the old state has spoken through the event. The silence did not say abandonment. The changed plan did not say failure. The expense did not say ruin. The expression upon another's face did not say that you were unworthy. These meanings were supplied from within. They came quickly because they had traveled the same path many times, yet between the appearance and the meaning there was an interval. Perhaps you scarcely noticed it. Perhaps the body filled it immediately with fear. Still, the interval was there, and because it was there, it can be entered consciously. I call this the sacred pause. It is sacred because it is the place in which you cease to be merely the servant of habit, and remember that you are the chooser of state. It is the space in which the past has risen, but the future has not yet been assigned to it. It is the place where an event may remain an event, rather than becoming an identity, a prophecy, and a destiny. The pause is not weakness, it is not indecision, it is not the frightened hesitation of one who does not know what to do. It is the deliberate refusal to let the oldest voice speak first, and speak for all time. The world has taught you to value immediate reaction. It praises the quick answer, the instant judgment, the swift interpretation. It tells you that unless you decide at once what an event means, you are naive or unprepared. But speed is not always wisdom. An arrow released too quickly cannot be called back. A word spoken from the first wound may create another wound. A conclusion made before all is known may become the state through which every later fact is interpreted. The pause protects the future from the first reaction. It says, something has occurred, but I shall not yet give it the whole of my imagination. Perhaps the body is already afraid. Let it be afraid for a moment. Perhaps the mind has already begun its familiar speech. Hear it without completing it. Perhaps the old scene has appeared. You do not have to enter. Say inwardly, I do not yet know what this means. Let the sentence be gentle. I do not yet know what this means. It does not ask you to call the event good. It does not ask you to rejoice in disappointment. It does not ask you to deny pain, danger, loss, or responsibility. It asks only that you stop pretending to possess knowledge you do not possess. You know what appeared. You may not know its place. You know what was said. You may not know what follows. You know that one plan has changed. You may not know what the change permits. You know that another person is silent. You may not know what is moving within them. You know that one road is closed. You may not know which road is now becoming possible. I do not yet know what this means. Those words return you from prophecy to honesty. Fear dislikes honesty because fear survives by presenting speculation as certainty. It speaks of the future as though it has already visited it. It says, "This will never change. They will not return. The way is lost. There will not be enough. You are too late." But fear has not traveled into tomorrow. It has only carried yesterday's pattern into an empty space. The sacred pause interrupts that journey. It says, "The future is not yet obliged to repeat the meaning I once assigned to the past." You may feel the old conclusion waiting impatiently. It wants a name. It wants you to say rejection, defeat, danger, humiliation, or loss. Do not name the event too quickly. A seed receives direction from the name given to it in consciousness. What you call failure may become the state of failure from which you act. What you call abandonment may become the identity of the abandoned one. What you call ruin may become the atmosphere in which every financial decision is made. You are not merely describing when you interpret. You are choosing the house in which the mind will live while the event unfolds. Pause before choosing the house. You may say, "This is painful, but I do not yet know what it means." You may say, "This is inconvenient, but I do not yet know its place." You may say, "I am disappointed, but disappointment will not decide the end." You may say, "I need time before I name this." This is not evasion. It is reverence for meaning. Men treat meaning carelessly. They throw it upon events before the events have revealed their full relationship to the journey. They make one incident carry the weight of eternity, then suffer beneath the burden they themselves attached. A door closes, and they say, "My chance is gone." A person withdraws, and they say, "I am unlovable." A delay appears, and they say, "The law is not working." A difficulty arises, and they say, "Nothing ever changes." One moment is made to answer for the whole of life. The pause refuses this injustice. It says, "One incident shall not be compelled to represent all incidents. 1 hour shall not be made the author of every year. One expression shall not define an entire relationship. One obstacle shall not become the measure of all possibilities." This moment may remain small. Let it remain small. The mind enlarges what it repeatedly interprets. The sacred pause restores proportion. Suppose you have received a message that unsettles you. The words are not what you hope to read. Before you reach the end, the body is already reacting. The mind begins to write its answer. It prepares to defend, explain, accuse, or withdraw. This is where the pause enters. Do not answer while the old identity holds the pen. Read the words once. Place them down. Feel what has arisen. Perhaps anger, perhaps fear, perhaps sadness. You do not need to erase any of it. Simply refrain from sending the first state into the outer world as action. Say, "This does not require my interpretation this instant." If the matter is not urgent, let time pass. The old self will say, "You must act now or lose control." The centered self knows that control purchased through reaction is not control. 1 hour of pause may save days of complication. One night of rest may reveal a meaning that agitation concealed. One morning may bring a word, a fact, or an inner clarity that was unavailable while the mind was burning. The pause does not promise that the event will become pleasant. It promises that your response need not be governed by the first wound. This is conscious creation at its most practical. You choose the state before you choose the answer. You ask, "Who shall speak through me?" The frightened one, the humiliated one, the one who believes she must prove her worth, or the one who remains whole even when disappointed. The words spoken from these states may differ completely. Sometimes the centered state speaks less. Sometimes it speaks more firmly. Sometimes it says nothing. Sometimes it leaves. Sometimes it stays and asks a clear question. The outward form cannot be determined by a rule. The state gives the action its intelligence. This is why the pause is not passivity. It is the chamber in which action is purified of unconscious fear. A musician does not strike every note the instant the hand approaches the instrument. Rhythm contains intervals. Without the interval, music becomes noise. Your life also requires intervals. A conversation requires the silence in which words are understood. A decision requires the space in which motives become clear. A feeling requires room to move before it is translated into identity. Do not be afraid of the interval. You have often called the interval uncertainty and treated uncertainty as danger. But uncertainty is not always the absence of truth. It may be the space in which truth has not yet taken visible form. The seed is uncertain to the eye, while it rests beneath the soil. The traveler cannot see the entire road from the first turn. The bridge of incidents is rarely displayed all at once. An event may occur, and its place in the bridge may remain hidden. The pause protects that hidden place from being named incorrectly. If you immediately call a delay failure, you begin living from failure. If you immediately call a closed door rejection, you enter the state of rejection. If you immediately call another person's silence abandonment, you occupy abandonment before the silence has completed its purpose. You force the unfinished bridge into the shape of the old conclusion. But the bridge may be turning. The delay may be repositioning people. The silence may allow a motive to change. The closed door may be ending a path too narrow for the state you have selected. Or the event may simply be an event whose larger usefulness is never understood. You need not invent a pleasant story to replace the fearful one. That too may be another attempt to control. The sacred pause does not say, "This must secretly be wonderful." It says, "I will not call it fatal merely because I cannot yet see beyond it." This is a stronger position than forced optimism. Forced optimism is fear attempting to wear a smile. The sacred pause can remain honest. I do not like this. I am affected by this. I may need to respond to this. And still, I refuse to make this the final authority. This does not define me. Let that become the second sentence. I do not yet know what this means. This does not define me. The event may affect your circumstance. It may alter your schedule. It may require money, time, courage, or a decision. But it does not possess the power to define the awareness experiencing it. A wave affects the ship. It does not become the captain. Weather affects the journey. It does not choose the port. A chapter affects the story. It does not necessarily dictate the ending. This does not define me. Perhaps someone speaks to you disrespectfully. Their words reveal a state. They may require a boundary. They may reveal that the relationship must change. But the disrespect does not define your worth. This does not define me. Perhaps a position ends. The ending may require you to seek another path. It may bring genuine concern. But the ending does not define your usefulness or capacity. This does not define me. Perhaps you make a mistake. The mistake may require correction, humility, or apology. But the mistake does not contain the whole identity. This does not define me. Perhaps the body experiences a difficult sensation. Wisdom may call for attention. But the sensation does not possess the authority to write your entire future in one moment. This does not define me. These words do not make you careless. They prevent responsibility from turning into self-condemnation. When identity is no longer fused with the event, you can respond more clearly. You do not have to protect the ego by denial. You can see what occurred without believing that your whole being is threatened by the seeing. The centered person can admit truth more easily than the reactive person, because truth does not destroy her center. She can say, "I was wrong. This does not define me." She can say, "I am hurt. This does not define me." She can say, "This relationship has changed. This does not define my capacity for love." She can say, "This path has ended. This does not define the whole of my future." The event is allowed to be true in its limited place. It is denied the right to become infinite. This is the discipline of the sacred pause. You keep the finite event finite. The mind in fear turns finite things into infinite ones. One delay becomes never. One silence becomes always. One loss becomes everything. One rejection becomes no one. One mistake becomes "I am a failure." Listen for these expansions. They happen quickly, but awareness can learn to notice them. The word "always" may be the sound of an event growing larger than itself. The word "never" may be fear attempting to close the future. When these words arise, pause. Is this truly always? Is this truly never? Or has one moment been stretched across time because the old state is afraid? You do not have to answer with forced hope. Simply return to precision. This happened now. This is how I feel now. This is what appears now. The future remains beyond the report of this moment. Precision is calming because it gives the body only the present burden rather than an imagined eternity. The body can meet 1 hour. It becomes overwhelmed when asked to carry all future hours at once. Reaction places all of tomorrow upon the chest. The sacred pause removes tomorrow and leaves only the breath before you. What is required in this breath? Perhaps nothing. What is required in this hour? Perhaps rest. What is required by the event? Perhaps an answer tomorrow. Let each thing remain in its proper time. You do not have to drag future duties into the night. The night has its own duty: to release, to restore, to allow the conscious mind to loosen its grip, to receive another state. I do not have to interpret this tonight. Let that phrase become a resting place. I do not have to interpret this tonight. Perhaps the circumstance seems important. It may be important, and still interpretation can wait. Perhaps you fear that waiting will make you irresponsible. Responsibility is not weakened by rest. It is often improved by it. You may attend to the fact without completing its emotional meaning. The paper may remain upon the table. The answer may remain unwritten. The conversation may remain unfinished. The future may remain open. I do not have to interpret this tonight. The phrase does not mean you will never decide. It means the frightened mind will not be forced to decide while tired, wounded, or half awake. It means the night will not become a courtroom. It means your bed will not become the place where every event is sentenced. I do not have to interpret this tonight. You may hear the mind object. But what if I overlook something? You can look tomorrow. But what if the other person misunderstands my silence? Understanding does not need to be purchased through panic. But what if delay makes matters worse? Then the appropriate action will be taken when clear. Mental rehearsal is not action. But what if the worst is true? If a difficult truth must be faced, you will face it more wisely from wholeness than from hours of imagined suffering. The phrase remains: I do not have to interpret this tonight. Let the body hear it. The forehead has been searching for meaning. It may stop searching. The eyes have been looking behind closed lids for evidence. They may become still. The jaw has been preparing words. The words can wait. The shoulders have been carrying an ending. The ending has not been decided. The hands have been holding the event as though it might escape and become more dangerous if released. Let the hands open. The event will remain available for practical attention without being held in the body all night. Set it down. The act of setting down is not abandonment. It is placement. A tool is placed upon the table after its work is finished for the day. The work may continue tomorrow. The tool does not need to remain in the hand through sleep. Your analytical mind is such a tool. It has uses. It can compare facts, make arrangements, and select practical means. But it cannot discover the whole bridge by worrying. Place it down. The deeper mind has another function. It receives states. It organizes meaning. It responds to the feeling in which you rest. If you carry the first fearful interpretation into sleep, you plant the event more deeply in the old soil. If you leave the meaning open and rest in wholeness, you give another state room to take root. Thus, the sacred pause is not empty. It is fertile. In the pause, you withdraw the old seed before planting another. You may not yet know the exact desired scene. That does not matter. It is enough not to plant catastrophe. An unplanted field is more open to good than a field deliberately filled with what you do not wish to harvest. Leave the field quiet tonight. You can plant peace. Perhaps only peace. Not the whole solution, not the complete form. Peace. The event is unfinished, and I am at peace with not knowing tonight. This is a profound imaginal act. You are not imagining the event away. You are imagining yourself no longer enslaved by the demand to know. The fulfilled state often contains this quality. If the end were secure, would you need to inspect every incident immediately? Would you need to demand that each stone explain how it belongs to the bridge? Or could you allow one confusing step, knowing the destination remained? The sacred pause is the behavior of one who trusts the end more than the first appearance. It says, I will not abandon the destination because I cannot yet interpret this stone. Suppose you are told that a meeting upon which you depended must be postponed. The old state says, there goes the opportunity. They are no longer interested. Something has changed against me. Pause. The meeting is postponed. That is what is known. You do not yet know what the postponement permits, what changes before the new date, or what conversation occurs because the schedule moved. You do not have to call it favorable. You simply do not call it fatal. This does not define the end. I will not complete this story from fear. Let that become the third sentence. I do not yet know what this means. This does not define me. I will not complete this story from fear. The old state is a storyteller. It knows how to use any beginning to produce its familiar ending. Give it a silent person, and it writes abandonment. Give it an expense, and it writes poverty. Give it a delay, and it writes defeat. Give it a mistake, and it writes unworthiness. You have heard these stories many times. The names of the characters may change. The ending remains the same. This is how you know the old state is writing. It does not respond to the uniqueness of the event. It forces every event into the same conclusion. I will not complete this story from fear. You do not have to write the new ending immediately. The refusal itself breaks authorship. The old narrator stops mid-sentence. Perhaps it says, because they have not answered, this must mean. Stop there. No completion. Perhaps the mind says, because this expense appeared, I will surely. Stop there. Perhaps the memory says, this happened before, and therefore, stop there. The unfinished sentence may feel uncomfortable. The mind wants closure, but not all closure is peace. A fearful conclusion closes the door upon possibility. Allow the sentence to remain open until another state can speak. You may discover that after rest, the sentence no longer requires completion. The event becomes smaller. A new fact appears. Another interpretation becomes possible. Or the practical truth becomes clear without the emotional catastrophe. The pause allows time to separate fact from reaction. Think of muddy water again. You cannot command it to become clear by stirring harder. Set the vessel down. The heavier particles fall. The water reveals what was there. Your first interpretation may be sediment from old experience. Let it settle. You may still choose a firm action after it settles. Composure does not guarantee that the answer will always be soft. It guarantees that the action is less contaminated by the past. There are times when the settled water reveals that a boundary must be drawn. There are times when it reveals that no offense occurred. There are times when it reveals that an old fear exaggerated a small event. There are times when it reveals that a path has truly ended and must be released. The pause does not predetermine the content of wisdom. It allows wisdom to emerge. Reaction pretends to know before clarity arrives. The sacred pause admits, I am not yet clear. There is dignity in not pretending. You have sometimes spoken because silence felt embarrassing. You thought you must have an answer. You must know what the event means. You must explain yourself. You must show strength. But strength can say, I need time to consider this. Strength can say, I am not ready to answer. Strength can say nothing. The world may interpret your pause according to its own state. Let it. You are not pausing to manipulate. You are pausing so that fear does not use your voice. This is self-government. A kingdom is not well governed when every messenger can rush into the throne room and issue a decree. Yet that is how many people live inwardly. An event arrives as a messenger. Before examining its message, they allow it to sit upon the throne. The messenger says, panic. They panic. The messenger says, defend. They defend. The messenger says, you are unworthy. They accept the name. The sacred pause returns order to the kingdom. The messenger may speak. The king listens, but the messenger does not issue the decree. The decree comes from the center. This event has appeared. I will consider it. It does not define me. I remain loyal to the state selected. There is no need for dramatic language. Quiet authority is enough. The outer world may be noisy. The decree may be a whisper. I do not have to interpret this tonight. A whisper from the throne carries more authority than a shout from fear. The body may still feel the messenger's urgency. Let the body settle gradually. Do not mistake bodily alarm for a command from the throne. The body is a loyal servant of repeated imagination. It has learned that certain events mean danger because you have joined them many times. A silence arrives, and the body remembers rejection. A bill arrives, and the body remembers insufficiency. A changed tone arrives, and the body remembers conflict. The reaction comes before conscious thought, because the association has become practiced. The pause is how you teach another association. Silence can be present without rejection. A bill can be present without ruin. A changed tone can be present without self-abandonment. Uncertainty can be present without emergency. You do not teach this through argument alone. You teach it by remaining with the present sensation, without completing the old story. The body tightens. You breathe. The old conclusion rises. You leave it unfinished. Nothing terrible happens merely because you did not interpret immediately. The body begins to learn that the pause is safe. The next time, the interval grows slightly larger. The reaction may still come, but awareness enters sooner. Eventually, the event appears, and the sacred pause becomes natural. You feel the first movement, and inwardly there is space. Not yet. I do not yet know what this means. You are no longer dragged instantly into the old house. You stand at the doorway and choose whether to enter. This is freedom becoming embodied. Do not expect perfection. A deeply practiced reaction may sometimes carry you away before you remember. Perhaps you spend half the night interpreting from fear. Then suddenly you hear the phrase, "I do not have to interpret this tonight." At that moment, the pause begins. It does not matter that you did not catch the first instant. The sacred pause is available whenever awareness returns. Even after reaction, you may stop the continuation. A river already flowing can be redirected. A story already begun can be left unfinished. A state already entered can be left. Do not say, "I missed the moment, therefore all is lost." Awareness creates another moment. Now is another threshold. You may enter the pause now. There is no penalty for arriving late. The mind may have told the old story for an hour. It need not tell it for 2. The body may have carried tomorrow for 10 minutes. It need not carry it until dawn. The letter may have been read many times. It can now be placed down. The conversation may have been repeated. It can now become quiet. The pause is not located only between the event and the first thought. It can be created between any thought and the next one. Fear says one sentence. You need not supply another. Memory shows one image. You need not ask what follows. The body gives one sensation. You need not name it destiny. Between this and the next movement, pause. This gives you countless opportunities through the night. Every moment is a doorway. You do not have to wait for a new event to practice. The event may already be hours behind you. The inner story remains active. Pause now. What is the next sentence you were about to say inwardly? Do not say it. What is the next image you were about to add? Leave the scene where it is. What is the next consequence fear wishes to produce? Do not visit it. Feel the quiet created by what you have not added. That quiet is not nothing. It is consciousness no longer serving the old sequence. It is the bridge remaining free to unfold beyond the old assumption. You may wonder whether leaving the meaning open gives the event too much freedom. You want to control it by declaring a positive result immediately. Sometimes a desired assumption is natural and welcome. Use it. You may say, "This is working in my favor." You may say, "The end remains secure." You may say, "Everything is resolving." But do not force these words while the whole being is violently resisting. Begin with the pause. A bridge is crossed one stone at a time, from catastrophe to openness, from openness to possibility, from possibility to quiet expectation, from expectation to natural knowing. You do not have to leap from terror to ecstasy. The sacred pause is the first stone. I do not yet know what this means. The second stone may be, this does not define me. The third, I will not complete this story from fear. Then perhaps, the end I selected remains possible. Later, the end is secure in consciousness. Let acceptance grow honestly. A small true movement is more powerful than a grand statement spoken from inner conflict. The pause prevents spiritual teaching from becoming another form of violence against yourself. You do not strike fear with an affirmation. You first stop allowing fear to strike you with interpretation. Then the fulfilled state can enter a room no longer filled with argument. The mind may become very quiet after the old conclusion is interrupted. This quiet may feel unfamiliar, even empty. You may ask, what should I think now? Perhaps nothing. You are not required to replace every fearful thought immediately. Let the mind rest between states. A field lies fallow before another crop. An empty room can be cleaned before new furniture arrives. The absence of thought may be healing. You have thought enough about the event. You have examined it from every angle fear can imagine. Let no angle be considered for a while. I do not have to interpret this tonight. This sentence can close the door gently, not lock it forever. Close it for the night. The matter remains outside. You remain inside. Perhaps tomorrow you open the door and address it. But tonight, the inner house belongs to rest. Imagine placing the event in a quiet room beyond the bedroom. You do not destroy it. You do not deny it. You set it upon a table. The letter lies there. The unanswered question lies there. The change plan lies there. The memory lies there. You close the door. The door is not fear. It is timing. This matter will receive attention at the proper hour. Now is the hour of sleep. You are teaching the mind that not every problem has unlimited access to consciousness. There are hours in which it may be considered, and hours in which it must wait. This boundary is an act of self-respect. The world does not have the right to enter every chamber at every hour. Another person's voice does not have the right to occupy the bed. An institution does not have the right to sit upon the pillow. A bill does not have the right to live inside the chest. You may give them practical attention without giving them sacred territory. The final moments before sleep are sacred territory. They are not meant to be filled with every messenger from the day. Choose what is allowed near you now. Perhaps only the phrase, I do not have to interpret this tonight. The sentence is simple enough to follow you as consciousness softens. You may say it once, then again when the old story rises, not rapidly, not as a charm, as a reminder of jurisdiction. Tonight is not the court in which the event will receive its sentence. Tonight is the chamber in which the judge rests. Without rest, judgment becomes distorted. Let the court close. Let every witness go home. Memory need not testify. Fear need not make its speech. The future need not be cross-examined. No verdict tonight. Feel how much pressure is released by those words. No verdict tonight. You may not know whether the relationship changes. No verdict tonight. You may not know how the expense is met. No verdict tonight. You may not know where the path turns. No verdict tonight. You may not know what another person is thinking. No verdict tonight. This does not mean no faith. It means faith is released from the demand to know every detail. The end may remain chosen without a verdict upon the middle. This is the subtle art. You know the destination in essence. You leave the incidents unjudged. The end is peace. The end is being cherished. The end is security. The end is harmony. The end is freedom. But you do not require each present event to resemble the end before it has completed its place in the bridge. A stone in the bridge does not resemble the shore. Do not make it confess the whole journey. Walk or rest according to what is natural, and leave meaning unfinished until more is revealed. The pause is how you remain loyal to the end, without lying about the middle. You can say, I dislike this stone. It is rough. It is uncomfortable. I did not expect it. Yet I will not declare that the shore is gone. This is faith with honesty. The world may teach that faith requires you to label every event a blessing, but forced labels can become another kind of fear. You are afraid to admit disappointment because you think honesty will destroy the manifestation. Honesty does not destroy the state when identity remains chosen. You may say, this hurts, and still remain loved. You may say, this frightens me, and still remain guided. You may say, I do not understand, and still remain open to resolution. The pause contains both truth and possibility. It does not demand false cheerfulness. It does not permit fatalism. It stands between them. Not denial, not doom, open awareness. This middle place may feel delicate at first. The mind wishes to run toward one extreme. Either everything is wonderful, or everything is lost. But life contains many unfinished movements. Learn to inhabit the unfinished without panic. A sentence can pause before its final word. A melody can suspend before resolution. A night can remain dark without doubting dawn. The sacred pause is such a suspension. There is tension in it only while you demand immediate closure. When you allow it, suspension becomes spaciousness. Perhaps the answer has not arrived because the sequence is not yet complete. Perhaps you do not understand because understanding belongs to a later point upon the bridge. You do not have to force the later point into the present hour. Let time carry what belongs to time. Your task now is not to know. It is to remain available to the state you have selected. The pause keeps you available. Fearful interpretation closes perception. Once you decide that failure has occurred, you cease noticing roads that contradict failure. You reject opportunities because they do not resemble the means you expected. You speak and act from defeat before defeat is fact. The pause preserves perception. Because you have not declared the story over, you can see what appears next. You can hear the unexpected word. You can recognize the natural impulse. You can notice another door. You can respond to a new fact without forcing it into the old conclusion. Thus, the pause is not merely inward peace. It changes what you are capable of perceiving and doing. A mind that believes all is lost sees little beyond loss. A mind that leaves meaning open can still receive instruction. You are making yourself teachable by the unfolding. You do not dictate every step. You allow the bridge to show itself. This is why the unbothered person often appears fortunate. She does not waste every new incident by naming it too quickly. She lets events reveal relationships. She sees possibilities others miss because fear has not narrowed her world to one conclusion. Her composure is not magic in the childish sense. It is alignment with a greater field of possibility. She does not consume the future before it arrives. She meets it. You can begin this way tonight. Do not consume tomorrow. Let tomorrow remain whole until it arrives. Do not divide it into feared scenes. Do not speak for the people within it. Do not decide what every door will do. You may prepare one practical act if needed. Then release the rest. The future is not safer because it has been mentally conquered in advance. It becomes more difficult to meet when you arrive exhausted from imagined battles. Come to tomorrow rested. Come to it without having sentenced it. Come to it as one who knows the end in consciousness but allows the bridge to use surprise. The sacred pause prepares such a meeting. It says, I will let tomorrow speak for itself. I will not force it to repeat yesterday. Feel the freedom in that. Yesterday has spoken enough. The old state has interpreted enough. The body has braced enough. Tonight, another relation to time begins. The present is not merely the place in which you wait for the meaning of events. It is the place in which you withhold unwanted meaning. This withholding is creative. You stop planting. You stop feeding. You stop giving the old state new material. The outer circumstance may continue for a time, but the inner machinery that reproduced it has been interrupted. A wheel may continue turning after the power is removed. Let it turn down. Do not reconnect the power by saying, because I still feel disturbed. The pause has failed. The pause may be working even while the body completes its old reaction. Remain. I do not have to interpret this tonight. The phrase can be spoken beneath discomfort. You do not have to feel calm before using it. It is permission, not a description. You may feel agitated and still decide not to interpret. You may cry and still leave the ending open. You may tremble and still refuse the prophecy. The sacred pause does not require a perfectly peaceful body. It creates the condition in which peace may gradually return. Do not wait for calm to pause. Pause, and calm may find you. The body learns from what you do next. If every wave of fear is followed by catastrophic thought, the body learns that fear predicts catastrophe. If fear is followed by a pause, a breath, and the refusal to conclude, the body learns that fear can pass without disaster being declared. This is a new education. You are teaching yourself that uncertainty is survivable, that unanswered questions can exist without consuming the night, that another person can be silent without your identity collapsing, that a plan can change without the whole future disappearing, that an expense can appear without the inner kingdom becoming poor. This education is slow only because the old lesson was repeated often. Do not rush. Every pause is a new lesson. Every uncompleted fearful story teaches another possibility. Every night in which one event is left uninterpreted weakens the automatic bond between circumstance and catastrophe. You are making space in consciousness. Soon you will notice that some events no longer produce the same immediate conclusion. The body may still respond, but the mind says, wait. That wait is sacred. It is the doorway through which another self enters. The former self knew only reaction. The new self knows selection. The former self asked the event, who am I now? The new self says, I know who I am, and I will decide what place this event may have. The former self demanded immediate meaning. The new self allows meaning to unfold. The former self believed pause meant losing power. The new self discovers that pause is where power is recovered. You may begin to cherish this interval, not because uncertainty becomes pleasant, but because it no longer feels empty. The pause contains choice. It contains dignity. It contains the unformed future. It contains the possibility that the bridge is larger than the present view. It contains the end selected without the middle condemned. There is great richness in this open space. Do not hurry to fill it. The mind may ask for an affirmation. Perhaps none is needed beyond this. I will not complete this story from fear. Let that be enough. You are not required to complete it from hope, either tonight. Just do not give fear the final sentence. The story may rest. The book may close upon an unfinished page. Sleep may come before resolution. This is allowed. You have believed that sleep should come only after all problems have been mentally arranged. But many matters are not resolved by more thought. They are resolved by time, by changed states, by natural events, by conversations beyond your present reach, and by clarity that arrives after rest. Let sleep participate in the bridge. Do not make sleep wait outside until reason has exhausted itself. Invite sleep into the unfinished story. It may soften the grip of the old state. It may allow the deeper mind to receive the end without argument. It may restore the body enough for tomorrow's movement. You do not have to solve before sleep. Sometimes sleep is part of how the solution becomes visible. I do not have to interpret this tonight. Let the sentence now become slower. I do not have to interpret this tonight. The day is finished. The event is not being denied. Its meaning is being released. I do not have to interpret this tonight. The other person may have their own night, their own thoughts, their own movement. You do not need to enter their mind. I do not have to interpret this tonight. The account can be viewed tomorrow. The number does not need to inhabit the body. I do not have to interpret this tonight. The plan may be revised. The path may reveal another turn. I do not have to interpret this tonight. The past may offer its old explanation. The past is not the only voice. I do not have to interpret this tonight. Perhaps you hear how different the phrase is from avoidance. Avoidance says, I will never face this. The sacred pause says, I will face it from a better state. Avoidance runs from fact. The sacred pause separates fact from fear. Avoidance leaves responsibility. The sacred pause places responsibility in its proper hour. You are not fleeing. You are returning to center before proceeding. A traveler who stops to examine the compass is not abandoning the journey. She is preventing unnecessary wandering. You have wandered far enough through reactions. Stop. Feel the compass settle. The end you selected remains. You may not know the road. You know the direction. Love, security, dignity, wholeness, peace. Which direction belongs to you? You do not have to name it aloud. Feel the quality. Then allow the present event to remain outside that quality until its place is known. It may later become part of the bridge. It may pass without importance. It may require action. But it shall not drag you back into the identity you have chosen to leave. This is the decree within the pause. This does not define me. I will not complete this story from fear. The words need not be repeated endlessly. They are doors. Use the door and enter the quiet room beyond them. Inside that room, no conclusion is demanded. The event remains outside upon the table. You are inside, supported, breathing. There is time. You have forgotten how healing it can be to feel there is time. Fear says every decision must be made now. Every answer must arrive now. Every relationship must reveal its future now. Every financial concern must be solved now. Every uncertainty must disappear now. But many things ripen through sequence. A fruit cut open too early does not become ripe because you were impatient. A letter sent before the thought is clear does not become wiser because it was immediate. Let time serve rather than threaten you. Tonight, time is carrying you towards sleep. It is not carrying the desire away. It is not proving that nothing is happening. It is simply moving. You may move with it without counting. The pause widens as you cease measuring. There is no need to decide how long the pause should last. It may be one breath in a conversation. It may be one night before replying. It may be several days while a situation reveals itself. Wisdom knows the measure more clearly when fear has become quiet. Do not create a rule. Create space. The right response often enters space naturally. You may wake with a simple sentence. You may feel moved to speak. You may feel moved to remain still. You may recognize that what seemed urgent no longer matters. You may see a practical step. Let it arise. A clear impulse does not usually require endless debate. It may be calm even when the action demands courage. The sacred pause distinguishes courage from panic. Both may move quickly, but courage has a center. Panic is only motion. When the response comes, ask whether it carries the scent of the old state. Does it beg? Does it punish? Does it seek to control another person's feeling? Does it attempt to prove worth? Does it arise because uncertainty has become intolerable? If so, perhaps the pause is not finished. Return. There is no shame in waiting longer, when waiting is wise. But if the response feels clear, proportionate, and consistent with dignity, act. The pause is not intended to become permanent inaction. It prepares action to express the selected identity. Then after acting, pause again before interpreting the result. You speak, and another answers. Pause. You apply, and time passes. Pause. You make the payment, and another obligation appears. Pause. The sacred pause may accompany every stage of the bridge. Without it, each incident becomes a new occasion for the old state to reclaim you. With it, the whole sequence remains open to another meaning. This is how composure is sustained through unfolding. You do not pause once and then demand that every later event confirm you. You pause whenever the senses offer another incomplete report. You remain loyal to the end, and you allow the middle to remain the middle. The middle is often untidy. A room being rearranged may look more disordered before it becomes harmonious. A road under repair may become temporarily difficult. A conversation moving toward honesty may first expose what had been concealed. Do not use these images to justify harm or remain in what wisdom tells you to leave. They are reminders only that appearance during transition does not always reveal destination. The pause allows discernment. It does not blindly call turbulence progress. It says, I will see clearly before I conclude. I will act wisely without making fear the judge. I will remain faithful to the essence of the end. This is mature assumption. It is not the denial of every fact. It is the refusal to give facts creative independence from consciousness. A fact arrives. You place it before awareness. Awareness determines whether the old state will be renewed. That is your work. No need to manipulate the fact. No need to shout at it. Pause. Select. Respond if necessary. Rest if not. The pattern is simple. The practice may require patience because habit rushes, but each pause weakens the rush. You may notice that life begins to feel slower in the best sense. Not delayed, but spacious. You hear more. You see more. You make fewer unnecessary movements. You no longer answer the imagined accusation, only the actual word. You no longer solve the imagined future, only the present matter. You no longer spend strength upon possibilities created solely by fear. Your action becomes economical. Your words gain weight because they are not poured out in panic. Your silence becomes clean because it is not punishment. Your rest becomes deep because it is not surrender to defeat. This is what the sacred pause gives. It gives time back to you. Reaction steals time by filling it with imagined consequences. The pause restores the actual moment. Here is the chair. Here is the bed. Here is the breath. Here is the fact. Here is the awareness. The rest has not happened. Stay here. The present may contain discomfort, but it is often more bearable than the multiplied future. You can meet this breath. You can meet this sensation. You can meet one decision tomorrow. You do not need to meet an entire imagined lifetime tonight. Let the future return to its rightful distance. You are not pushing fulfillment away. You are refusing to push fear forward. There is a difference. The end remains inwardly near. The feared consequences are no longer dragged into the present. This creates the emotional room in which the fulfilled state can be felt. Perhaps peace appears first as the absence of the old prophecy. Perhaps you do not yet feel joy, but you are no longer certain of disaster. That is movement. Perhaps you do not yet feel secure, but the event no longer seems to define everything. That is movement. Perhaps you do not yet see the miracle, but you have stopped making its opposite inevitable in imagination. That is movement. Do not despise these quiet turns. The greatest rivers change direction through gradual shaping of the earth. The whole course of a life may turn through repeated sacred pauses. A woman who once reacted to every silence as rejection begins to pause. Soon she no longer sends the fearful word. The relationship changes because the old role is not supplied. Or she sees clearly that the relationship cannot carry the state of being cherished and leaves with dignity. A man who once interpreted every expense as ruin begins to pause. He sees the actual figure, makes a wise decision, and notices an opportunity fear would have hidden. A person who once treated every delay as failure begins to pause. She remains long enough upon the bridge to reach the turn that would have been missed had she fled. The outer results differ. The inner principle remains. The pause returns authorship. You cease living as though events arrive with their meanings already sealed. You open the seal. You read the fact. You choose what state shall respond. This is the beginning of conscious life. Before, you were moved by association. Now, awareness enters. Before, the past answered everything. Now, the present has room. Before, fear completed each story. Now, the story can remain unfinished until love, wisdom, dignity, or peace supplies another end. You may feel gratitude for the pause itself, not because the event occurred, because you are no longer powerless before interpretation. You have found the place where choice lives. It is smaller than you expected, not a grand ceremony, a breath, a withheld conclusion, a sentence left unfinished, a night of no verdict. This is enough to begin. As the body grows heavier, let the sacred pause become less intellectual. Do not think about the principle now. Experience it. A thought appears. Pause. You need not follow. A memory appears. Pause. You need not enter. A question appears. Pause. You need not answer. A sensation appears. Pause. You need not name it. The pause is spacious. It does not push away. It allows without joining. Let thoughts move through it like sounds in the distance. A sound appears and disappears. You do not build a story around every sound. Let thoughts receive the same freedom. They appear. They fade. You remain. If one thought asks for meaning, answer only this. I do not have to interpret this tonight. Then return to silence. Perhaps the phrase itself will soon become too long. Then use only. Not tonight. The mind begins the story. Not tonight. The old conversation returns. Not tonight. The future demands a verdict. Not tonight. No hostility. No suppression. The door closes gently. Not tonight. Later, perhaps wisdom will speak. Tonight, rest. The bridge continues without interpretation. The people involved continue living their unseen lives. Time continues carrying events toward their proper meeting. You do not need to narrate the movement. Let the unseen remain quiet. The sacred pause is not empty while you sleep. It is the absence of interference. A seed is helped by the gardener's proper action, but not by continual digging. You have dug enough into this event. You have turned it over and over. You have searched beneath it for meanings. Now cover the seed. Leave the soil. Allow darkness to do what darkness does. I do not have to interpret this tonight. The whole nervous system may begin to recognize the sentence. No emergency of meaning, no demand for certainty, no need to force hope, simply no verdict. This is safe. An event can remain unfinished, and you remain safe in this moment. An answer can be delayed, and you remain whole. A person can be uncertain, and your identity remains yours. A plan can change, and the end can remain selected. Let these truths enter without effort. You do not have to repeat them. The body learns from the atmosphere. The atmosphere is open, quiet, unjudged. The old state may appear at the edge, waiting to name the silence. Do not fight it. Let it wait. It has named enough things for one lifetime. Tonight, it may remain without employment. The throne is not empty. Awareness is present. You are present. You do not have to issue a new decree every minute. One decree is enough. I will not complete this story from fear. Then silence becomes obedience to that decree. Nothing more needs to be said. Perhaps tomorrow the meaning becomes clear. Perhaps it does not. You are learning that clarity of identity can exist before clarity of circumstance. You know who you choose to be, even while the event remains uncertain. Cherished, supported, guided, whole, at peace. You do not need to know what the event means in order to know what it shall not be permitted to make you. It shall not make you unworthy. It shall not make you abandoned in consciousness. It shall not make you powerless. It shall not take the divine name and join it to fear without your consent. This is enough certainty. Certainty of identity. Openness about incident. The combination creates composure. You may move through an uncertain world without becoming uncertain in being. You may say, I do not know what comes next, but I know I will not abandon myself while it unfolds. This promise is inward. No circumstance needs to approve it. Let it become part of the state. I will not abandon myself while this unfolds. I will not use another person's silence as a weapon against myself. I will not use a changed plan to declare my life a failure. I will not use one expense to frighten myself through the night. I will not use uncertainty to rehearse catastrophe. I will pause. I will remain. I will let the story be unfinished. These words are not a vow of perfection. You may forget. Then remember. The pause is waiting. It is always available between one thought and the next. You cannot lose it permanently. Awareness creates it whenever you stop. So stop now. No more meaning for this moment. No more interpretation. Only breath. Only support. Only the quiet room. Only the sense that the future remains larger than the old conclusion. You need not declare the event favorable. You need only refuse to call it fatal. You need not know the bridge. You need only refrain from destroying it in imagination before you have crossed. You need not solve anything in this hour. You need only leave room for the solution. The room is here, in the pause. Let the pause widen. Let it surround the event. Let it surround the person. Let it surround the question. Let it surround tomorrow. No verdict. No sentence. No final meaning. The end remains selected. The middle remains open. You remain whole. And whenever the old storyteller begins again, answer softly, I do not yet know what this means. This does not define me. I will not complete this story from fear. I do not have to interpret this tonight. You no longer need to follow every word. You have listened long enough. The mind has received what it was meant to receive, and now the words may begin to pass around you like a quiet wind moving through the night. You do not have to remember them. You do not have to arrange them. You do not have to hold them in conscious attention. Let the meaning remain while the language grows distant. Let the teaching become softer than thought. You may drift now. You may lose the thread of my voice. You may hear only a phrase, then silence, then another phrase appearing from far away. Nothing is required of you. There is no final exercise to complete. There is no perfect feeling to reach. There is no thought you must preserve until the very instant sleep takes you. What has been accepted inwardly does not depend upon your remaining awake to guard it. The state can deepen without your conscious effort. The seed can rest beneath the soil without being watched. The bridge can form beyond the reach of the senses. The old world can continue passing while you sleep. You do not have to stand at the window observing its departure. You do not have to count each old reaction as it fades. You do not have to know which habit has already lost its strength and which will require another gentle return tomorrow. Let all of that belong to the quiet order of the law. For now, rest. The old world has spoken loudly enough. It has shown you its letters, its figures, its silences, its delays, its expressions, its changing plans, and its unfinished circumstances. You have read the reports. You have considered them. You have carried them farther than they needed to be carried. Tonight, you may put them down. The old report does not need another answer. The old argument does not need another witness. The old fear does not need another scene. The old identity does not need another performance. You are not required to become the person you were merely because the memory of that person remains familiar. Familiarity is not destiny. A garment may carry the shape of the one who wore it, even after it has been removed. The folds remain for a while. The fabric remembers, but the garment is no longer upon you. Let the old identity lie beside the bed. Do not tear it. Do not condemn it. Do not ask why you wore it for so long. It once felt necessary. It once seemed to protect you. It once gave you a way to understand what you could not control. Bless it gently and leave it there. You do not need it in sleep. The one who worried through every silence may rest. The one who prepared for rejection before it arrived may rest. The one who held the entire household within her body may rest. The one who believed responsibility required constant tension may rest. The one who watched every door for signs of loss may rest. The one who tried to earn peace by solving everything may rest. She has labored enough. You are not destroying her. You are relieving her. Tell her softly that the watch is over for tonight. She does not need to stand guard. She does not need to keep the future safe through fear. She does not need to rehearse disappointment in order to survive it. She may lay down her post. The night will continue without her vigilance. The earth will continue turning. The breath will continue moving. The heart will continue its quiet work. And the bridge of incidents will continue arranging what belongs to the state you have selected. You need not force the bridge. Let the bridge carry you. A traveler does not lift the road and place it beneath each foot. She walks where the road appears. A vessel does not carry the sea carries the vessel. Let yourself be carried. The conscious mind has tried to carry too much. It has carried other people's thoughts without knowing them. It has carried tomorrow's conversations before they were spoken. It has carried future expenses before they arrived. It has carried decisions belonging to distant rooms. It has carried endings that never occurred. Set down what was never yours to carry. Another person's mind belongs to them. Tomorrow belongs to tomorrow. The bridge belongs to the law. The state belongs to consciousness. And this moment belongs to rest. Do not reach beyond it. There is no need to look for the next sign. Do not watch for the miracle. The one who watches anxiously still assumes that the miracle is absent. She looks down every road, listens for every footstep, examines each ordinary incident, and asks whether it is finally the beginning. But the fulfilled self does not live upon a watchtower. She is not counting the distance between herself and completion. She rests within the state in which completion has already become natural. Let that be your posture now. Not watching for the miracle, sleeping from the state that no longer requires one as proof. What men call a miracle may already be approaching through ordinary events. A decision may be softening. A conversation may be forming. A former obstacle may be losing relevance. A person may be remembering something forgotten. A road may be opening through a change that seems unrelated. You do not need to imagine each movement. To do so would return you to supervision. Let the unseen remain unseen. Mystery is not danger. Silence is not emptiness. Delay is not refusal. The hidden interval does not mean the law has ceased. Some of the greatest movements begin where the senses can give no report. The root moves in darkness. The tide changes beyond the shore. The first light of dawn begins before the sleeper can distinguish it from night. You need not witness the beginning in order to receive the result. Sleep. The old world may still appear tomorrow. Do not be alarmed. A familiar thought may return before you remember the state selected tonight. A familiar circumstance may still stand where it stood yesterday. Someone may speak from an old pattern. The letter may remain unanswered. The figure may remain upon the page. The household may still contain movement. This does not mean nothing has changed. It may only mean that the mirror has not completed its former reflection. You do not have to frown again because the glass displays yesterday's face. You may notice the reflection and remain soft. You may hear the report and refuse the old command. You may feel the first wave and remember the depth beneath it. But not now. Tomorrow's return does not need to be practiced tonight. Let morning take care of morning. This hour is not preparation for struggle. It is surrender into being. Remain inwardly undisturbed. Not because nothing matters. Many things matter. Love matters. Dignity matters. The body matters. Home matters. Purpose matters. The people entrusted to your care matter. Your hopes matter. Your wounds matter. Your life matters. Remaining inwardly undisturbed does not mean becoming indifferent to any of these. It means that temporary appearances do not possess the right to define them. One silence does not define love. One expense does not define supply. One closed door does not define purpose. One disagreement does not define harmony. One difficult night does not define life. One frightened thought does not define consciousness. One old reaction does not define the self you are becoming. You may care without becoming captive. You may feel without becoming the feeling. You may respond without allowing fear to choose the response. You may rest without abandoning what matters. Indeed, rest may be the most faithful act available now. You have done enough for this day. Anything that truly requires action can be met in its proper hour. Nothing wise is gained by forcing tomorrow into the night. Let the question remain unanswered. Let the person remain beyond your present understanding. Let the account remain outside the body. Let the decision remain in the room where it is being formed. Let the bridge remain hidden. You are not responsible for illuminating every part of it. You need only remain loyal to the end. And loyalty now feels like rest, not repetition, not strain, not one more attempt to produce the perfect imaginal scene. Rest. The state has heard you. The deeper mind has received the direction. You may stop speaking. The king does not repeat the decree because the kingdom has become quiet. The decree stands. The mountain does not explain itself to the wind. It remains. The river does not announce every mile of its journey. It continues. Let your conviction become like these things, quiet, unforced, undivided. Perhaps the mind still asks whether you have believed enough. Let the question pass unanswered. Belief does not become deeper through anxious measurement. Perhaps you felt peace for only a few moments. Those moments were not lost. Perhaps fear returned. The return of fear did not erase peace. Perhaps you never reached the emotion you expected. Naturalness does not always arrive as emotion. It may arrive as the simple willingness to stop arguing. It may arrive as one breath released. It may arrive as the realization that nothing more needs to be decided tonight. That is enough. You do not need to be perfect in the state. You are becoming familiar with it. The house of peace may still feel new. You may awaken briefly and forget where you are. Then remember gently, I live here now, not as a command, as recognition. I live where another person's mood does not decide my worth. I live where silence is not immediately translated into abandonment. I live where an obligation can be met without becoming the identity of ruin. I live where uncertainty can exist without becoming an emergency. I live where feelings may visit without owning the house. But even these words may now be too many. Let the meaning remain as quiet shelter. You are sheltered, not from every event, from the need to become every event. You are held, not because the world has promised never to move, because awareness remains larger than movement. You are safe in the state you have chosen, not safe because every outer condition is already perfect. Safe because no temporary condition possesses final authority over being. The outer world may report. It does not command. The mirror may delay. You do not need to imitate it. Emotion may rise. It does not own the house. The bridge may turn. You do not need to force it straight. Everything may remain unfinished in appearance, while the end remains selected in consciousness. Let this truth become softer. The end remains selected. No need to repeat it forcefully. The end remains selected. The body may grow heavy. The end remains selected. Thought may fade. The end remains selected. Sleep may remove the words. The end remains selected. You do not need to hold the end. Let the end hold you. You have tried to hold the desired life with the mind, as though one moment of inattention would cause it to disappear. But what is truly accepted in being does not require constant conscious pressure. A person does not hold her own name throughout the night. Still, the name remains hers. She does not repeat the address of her home while sleeping. Still, she awakens within it. Let the selected state become such an address. You do not have to recite it. You rest there, cherished, supported, respected, guided, whole. Perhaps none of these words is necessary. Perhaps only I am. I am. Before the silence, I am. Before the letter, I am. Before the account, I am. Before the memory, I am. Before the future, I am. The circumstance was added. The fear was added. The conclusion was added. But the awareness of being remains. Rest in being before every addition. I am. No need to clothe it now. The name alone is enough. I am. Then quiet. The old world may pass across the surface of sleep like scenery beyond the window of a moving carriage. You do not need to stop the carriage and argue with each familiar place. Let the old house pass. Let the old street pass. Let the station where you once waited pass. Let the fields of scarcity pass. Let the rooms of conflict pass. Let the faces that once seemed to hold your worth pass. You are moving. The darkness beyond the window may make movement difficult to see. Still, you are moving. You need not know how far. You need not ask when the new landscape appears. Let the journey continue while you sleep. The bridge carries you. No need to walk consciously across every stone. Some stones may be crossed in the form of a changed thought, some through another person's decision, some through an ordinary conversation, some through the ending of an old habit, some through a door you had not considered, some through the realization that a form you were chasing did not contain the essence you truly desired. Trust the destination more than your picture of the road. The end is love, not anxiety about one person. The end is support, not fear about one channel. The end is purpose, not dependence upon one position. The end is peace, not control of every voice in the household. The end is wholeness, not the perfection of every moment. Let the essence remain. Release the method, release the date, release the demand, that every step explain itself. An unfinished bridge cannot be judged from one stone. An unfinished story cannot be condemned from one page. An unfinished night cannot tell you what dawn will reveal. No verdict now. No verdict against yourself. No verdict against the desire. No verdict against the law. No verdict against the hidden movement. The court is closed. The witnesses may leave. Memory may leave. Fear may leave. Reason may place its papers down. The judge may sleep. Nothing requires a sentence tonight. Perhaps the old voice still whispers that you must remain alert. You have heard this voice before. It believes vigilance is love. It believes tension is responsibility. It believes worry is protection. Do not argue with it. Tell it softly. You may rest too. You have done enough. The gate is secure. The kingdom is not abandoned. The state remains. Let the old watchman lower his lamp. Let him sit beside the gate. Let his eyes close. The night does not need guarding. What belongs to you in consciousness will not pass unseen merely because you sleep. What requires your natural action will become known at the proper hour. You will not miss the bridge by resting. Rest may be one of its stones. Let sleep be part of the unfolding. The body knows how to enter it. You do not have to command sleep. You do not have to watch yourself falling. You do not have to wonder whether you are deep enough. Let the edges of the room soften. Let sounds become distant. Let the weight of the body be received. You are not holding the bed. The bed is holding you. You are not holding the earth. The earth is holding the bed. You are not holding life together. Life is carrying movements far beyond conscious reach. Release another measure of weight. No need to release all at once. The forehead may rest. It has searched enough. The eyes may rest. They have inspected enough. The jaw may rest. It has prepared enough answers. The shoulders may rest. They have carried enough imagined tomorrows. The hands may rest. They have grasped enough. The heart may continue its own rhythm without being ordered to feel differently. Let the body be exactly where it is. No demand for serenity. No demand for proof. No demand for a miracle before morning. The deepest miracle tonight may be that you cease requiring one in order to rest. You sleep not as the one waiting for life to begin, but as the one whose inner life has already changed direction. You sleep not as the one begging the world to become kinder, but as the one who no longer uses the world's temporary harshness to attack herself. You sleep not as the one abandoned by silence, but as the one who can allow silence to become shelter. You sleep not as the one surrounded by uncertainty, but as the one who leaves uncertainty unfilled by fear. The state is becoming natural through this release. Every moment you do not repeat the old argument teaches naturalness. Every breath, not used to rehearse danger, teaches naturalness. Every unanswered question, allowed to remain until morning, teaches naturalness. Every old emotion welcomed without being crowned, teaches naturalness. Every appearance seen without psychological surrender, teaches naturalness. You do not need to monitor the lesson. The deeper mind learns through experience. Tonight, the experience is simple. An unfinished life can still contain peace. An unanswered question can still permit sleep. A moving world can exist around a still center. A feeling can remain without becoming identity. An old reflection can appear without being reproduced. This is enough learning for one night. Let even the learning disappear. You do not need concepts in sleep, only atmosphere. A quiet atmosphere of being held. A quiet atmosphere of no demand. A quiet atmosphere in which nothing outside you must change in this instant. Let the atmosphere become almost wordless. No hurry, no pursuit, no defense, no trial, no prediction, no need to know. The bridge knows its direction. The state contains its correspondence. The law is not asleep because you sleep. Conscious creation is not weakened by rest. The seed is not abandoned beneath the earth. The river is not lost because night hides it. The mountain is not diminished because no one sees it in darkness. You remain what you have accepted, even when conscious thought becomes quiet. Perhaps the final thought is not clear. That is well. Perhaps you drift while a sentence remains unfinished. That is well. An unfinished sentence cannot destroy an accepted state. Perhaps you hear only one word: rest. Let it be enough. Rest. The world can wait. The letter can wait. The question can wait. The mirror can wait. The future can wait. Rest. You are not delaying fulfillment by sleeping. You are ceasing to delay peace. Rest. You are not giving up the end. You are giving up the struggle around the end. Rest. You are not becoming careless. You are allowing wisdom to return refreshed. Rest. You are not surrendering to circumstances. You are withdrawing your surrender from them. Let this distinction fade into feeling. No more battle, no more proving, no more guarding. You are permitted to be still before the evidence arrives. You are permitted to feel secure before the outer report changes. You are permitted to experience love without consulting silence. You are permitted to feel supported while one visible matter remains unanswered. You are permitted to enter peace while life remains human and unfinished. These permissions do not need to be earned. They belong to consciousness now. You may take them softly. No grand declaration. A quiet yes. Yes to rest. Yes to not knowing. Yes to being held. Yes to another state becoming natural. Then silence. The world may rearrange itself through the quiet order of the law. You do not need to supervise the arrangement. One person may move. Another may speak. A former resistance may weaken. A natural opportunity may arise. An old pattern may lose the response that sustained it. A decision may turn. A path may reveal itself. A form may end so that the essence can appear more fully elsewhere. Let life possess the freedom to fulfill the state in ways reason cannot design. Do not narrow the miracle before it arrives. Do not demand that it wear one face. Do not demand that it enter through one door. Do not demand that it announce itself. What men call miracles often arrive dressed as ordinary days. The conversation seems natural. The meeting seems accidental. The timing seems fortunate. The change of mind seems spontaneous. The answer seems to have appeared suddenly. But consciousness knows that the visible event is the final expression of an invisible order. You need not watch the order. Live from the end. Sleep from the end. Let the miracle become natural enough that when it arrives, some part of you quietly says, of course. Not surprise born of disbelief, recognition born of inward familiarity. Of course the way opened. Of course support appeared. Of course peace became visible. Of course I was not forgotten by life. Do not repeat this now if it keeps the mind awake. Let the simple implication remain without words. The desired life is no longer far before you. You rest from it, not toward it. After the answer, after the relief, after the restoration, after the burden has been removed, after the bridge has been crossed, you need not see the scene. Feel only the absence of pursuit. Nothing to chase, nothing to force, nothing to prove. The matter is settled in the chamber of consciousness. The outer sequence may continue. You are allowed to sleep during the sequence. Remain inwardly undisturbed, not because nothing matters, because what matters is too sacred to be continually handed over to every passing appearance. Remain inwardly undisturbed, not as a performance, as freedom. Remain inwardly undisturbed, not by denying the wave, by remembering the depth. Remain inwardly undisturbed, not by controlling every messenger, by remembering who issues the decree. Remain inwardly undisturbed, not by forcing the mirror, by remaining faithful to the chosen face. Remain inwardly undisturbed, not by imprisoning emotion, by refusing to give the visitor ownership of the house. Let the phrase grow quieter, inwardly undisturbed, still within, held within, whole within. The world may move around the stillness, let it move. The night may deepen around the stillness, let it deepen. Sleep may carry conscious awareness away from these words, let it carry you. You do not have to listen any longer. The voice may become only sound. The sound may become distance. The distance may become silence. The silence may become sleep. Nothing outside you needs to be settled before you are permitted to rest. The person does not need to answer. The account does not need to change tonight. The decision does not need to be made in this hour. The household does not need to become perfectly still. The whole bridge does not need to become visible. Nothing outside you needs to be settled before you are permitted to rest. The end has been chosen. The old story no longer requires your attention. Let it fade from lack of nourishment. Let the old reactions lose familiarity. Let the new state become the place to which the mind returns naturally. Let the world rearrange itself while you sleep. Remain still within. Let what men call miracles arrive through the quiet order of the law. Do not watch for them. Do not force them. Do not ask the bridge to explain itself. Let the bridge carry you. The old world may pass. The new state may deepen. The senses may close. The law remains. Rest now. You are safe in the state you have chosen. The end is selected. The bridge is forming. The world is moving. You may sleep. Nothing more is required. Remain still. Let life answer. Rest now. It is done.